Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Perth County Council, this 20th day of June. I'd like to call our meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. I'll read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Perth County is situated on the traditional land of the Onondaga Bay, who have a long-standing relationship with the land and water throughout the region. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. As a county, we have a responsibility for reconciliation and the continued stewardship of the land on which we live and work. If any council member has disclosed their pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting moves along. We have a motion to confer, we have a couple items to change in our agenda. How about Tyler telling you about them?
Perfect. So through the warden, we just have a couple of item changes here and some additions. Item 7.2, the presentation from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, Kate Burns-Gallagher, is going to be moving ahead of the planning public meeting OPA 222. So that's 7.1. So we're just going to make a little change there. And then as for the additions, two bylaws, bylaw 3989-2024, which is the Huron-Perth Public Health Cost Apportionment Renewal. And then the bylaw 3990-2024 will be added to the bylaw section. That's a Spruce Lodge long-term care cost apportionment renewal as well. Those conclude the changes and additions.
Okay, thank you. Anything from any of the council members? If not, that council receives a consent agenda item 6.1. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
Yeah.
Confirmation of the agenda, one here. Okay. The June 20th, 2024 agenda be approved as amended. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McKenzie. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we have agenda items. We have 15 items on our consent agenda. Is there any items anyone would like pulled? Have any questions on? Councillor McDermott?
Yes, 6.11 is on the calendar, the assessment cycle. Have we sent a letter yet to the province about the assessment?
Oh, Corey?
Through the warden, we haven't sent a recent, but we have sent letters to them regarding assessment cycles and urging them to do a reassessment.
Yep, I thought so, but if not, I was going to pull it, but if not, I'm fine.
Okay, any other one anyone has questions on? Not, then we have a motion that council receives the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.15 and approves the June 6, 2024 council minutes. Moved by Councillor Gassenberg, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we are down to our public meetings, public hearings, and delegations. First up, we have Kate Burns-Gallagher from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. Morning, Kate. Welcome to Perth County Council. Sorry I didn't get to chat to you earlier. Yep, however you. There. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Warden, through you to County Council. Lovely to see you this morning. It's great to be here. Perth is my first stop on the Summer Magic Tour, so I believe it was last year as well, so great to see you all. I'm Kate Gallagher, and I'm the Executive Director of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. And I'm here to give you an update on our 2024-2025 priorities. So for this calendar year and into the beginning of next, so that covers AMO and Roma, as well as our work with the MPs and MPPs. Next slide. So just a quick overview of who we are as an organization. We are the 15 Upper and Single Tier municipalities you see here on the slide. We represent 300 communities, 117 municipalities. We are at more than 1.6 million residents, and we're in the process right now of doing a demographic study to see about that population number right now. We anticipate that's increasing as we speak. 250,000 businesses, 500,000 square kilometers, 90% rural. So we represent a large portion of the province. When we're going to Queen's Park, we have a huge voice when we go to Queen's Park. And so there's that huge benefit of working together. Next slide. Oh, and that's just a fun slide if you turn us around. You see that we're the shape of an elephant, and Owen Sound is in a rather precarious position. Next slide. So the purpose of WOWC is really to work as that one voice together, both at the provincial and federal governments, to advocate for issues that are affecting rural Western Ontario. And we specifically say rural, those separated cities are not part of our organization. So we represent the rural, upper and single tier municipalities. And so we advocate on all of our different priorities in a given year to the provincial and federal governments, and work with our partners in our rural communities as well. Next slide. Great. So how do we operate? We have our caucus, which is composed of our 15 wardens, represented wonderfully by Warren Agats, who's a great ambassador for Perth County. Then we have our CAOs with CAO Wolf, who's incredibly engaged and wonderful to work with. And our staff, we have an executive director, myself, a manager of government relations and administrative coordinator, and we also bring in great support from SWIFT's admin and marketing and communications staff as well. We have an economic development committee, and you are incredibly well represented by Councillor McKenzie on that committee. And then we have subject matter expert teams. So these are the 15 staff from across the 15 counties that sit together and help inform that advocacy from the ground up. So we have from economic development, Meredith Forget. From comms, we have Sarah Franklin. Planning, we have Andrea. And then we also have a social services committee as well. But with Perth being with Stratford there, we don't have a full representation right now. And then next slide. So how do we do our work? It's with advocacy. We have meetings with ministers. At our last caucus meeting on June 5th, we had the Solicitor General at our meeting. We go to Queen's Park, we meet with our MPs and MPPs, we have Roma and AMO, and we do a lot of work as with the MPs and MPPs as well, because we recognize that those elected officials, there's only one taxpayer, there's only one constituent, and we all represent those individuals. So we really want to work with our MPs and MPPs because they're our advocates at Queen's Park and at Parliament Hill. Next slide. So getting into those priorities for this year, as you can see, not surprisingly, housing is our top priority. And what are we talking about when it comes to housing? So we are asking the provincial government to reinstate all DCs into the planning charges and costs so that we can be made whole again as municipalities. So as Amo highlighted, there's a need to reinstate still both housing services and the cost of land as eligible DCs. Together, those two will account for approximately $4 billion over 10 years for our municipalities. And that affects our ability to invest in community housing. So we're really pushing to ensure that those two pieces are included, and we had a submission to the province on that. Secondly, we also want to make sure that our small and rural and upper tier municipalities can access both the municipal housing infrastructure program that was announced, the $1 billion, and the Building Faster Fund. There was 120 million or so that was set aside for rural and small communities. We want to make sure that we can access that. So going into AMO in August, we are going to be we'll be pushing hard, keeping the feet to the fire, if you will, of making sure our rural and small communities can access those two funds. Next slide. Okay, infrastructure is a new priority for us this year, and it's not surprising. Water, wastewater, and then on top of that, roads are all huge cost expenses for our small and rural municipalities. And as our communities are growing in Western Ontario, we are seeing generational investments across the whole region. We want to make sure that we are at the table for those conversations. We want to make sure that we know what the plan is for the investments in Western Ontario, and so that we know what the infrastructure plan is. The infrastructure ends up falling on the backs of our municipalities, and we need to make sure that we know what's happening so that we can plan for that funding. A lot of the conversations we're having right now is around municipal servicing plans and making sure there's funding for those as well. All right, next slide. And part and parcel with all those investments is workforce and also housing. These are not, I would argue, silos, right? You can't have one without the other. You need a workforce to build your housing and infrastructure, and you need housing and infrastructure to support your workforce. And as our region grows, we know we need transportation and we need childcare to make sure that people can get to work. So by 2030, we're going to have about 82,000 jobs in healthcare and social assistance, and 28,000 jobs needed to be filled in childcare. So we want to look at opportunities to have those positions filled up to and including 2030. And we know we can't do it by immigration alone. So we need to look at opportunities for upskilling and training within our region for people that are already here working and housed here too. Next slide. And our last priority is mental health addictions and homelessness. So right now we're advocating for the homelessness prevention program funding for a dedicated rural stream of funding. Right now, the social service managers get a bucket of funding and there's nothing dedicated just for rural. And mental health addictions and homelessness, we're seeing acute issues in rural areas. And the rural areas are experiencing very different issues than our urban counterparts. Not to take away from our urban counterparts, but that's different. Homelessness or mental health addictions looks different in rural. So we'd like to see dedicated funding for our rural communities under that HPP stream. And then we have the second ask, but actually it's already been checked off. When Solicitor General came to our meeting at the beginning of the month, the mobile crisis response teams have now received 3-year annualized funding. So we're incredibly thankful for that. And the Solicitor General thanked us for our advocacy on that piece. It was a huge part in making sure that that went from 1 to 3-year funding. So there's some stability in that program. Next slide. And I'm sure you're no strangers to the SWIFT program as you have Councillor Kazenberg around the table. And what we'll be doing going into AMO is requesting a delegation with Minister Surma to look at the ASIP program and where that stands and what that looks like. Right now, there's still a lot of outstanding permits that need to be pulled, and we don't want to have our municipalities on the hook for that and have all those permits come in at the last minute. So we want to be able to plan. So we are meeting with Minister Surma at AMO, and there's also a meeting this afternoon with Roma. So we're hopeful to get some information from that today even. Last but not least, here is next slide, sorry, is economic development. And once again, you're well represented by Councillor McKenzie on our Economic Development Committee. And this committee is our group of ministry liaisons, our economic development staff, and we talk about what's happening on the ground when it comes to economic development, those major investments coming to the region. What are the requirements? Looking at the data, gathering the research. So this committee is really the driver of that information that goes up to the caucus. So it's an incredibly valuable committee. Next slide. And hopefully you've seen, and the information is getting out to all of you, but we have the Ontario West Municipal Conference coming up on Friday, October 25th in Chatham, Kent, with the keynote speaker, Paul Wells, a well-renowned Canadian political journalist. And it's sure to be a great day. We have breakout sessions focused on our priorities, so from infrastructure, workforce, economic development, social services. We also have a session from Integrity Commissioner to wrap up the day, talking about politicians behaving badly. It sure will be an interesting one. And so registration's open now, early bird before Labor Day. So if you can register sometime in the summer, that'd be fantastic. There's also a block of hotel rooms in Chatham, Kent, if you so like. But we highly recommend coming out because this is our conference. Eastern Ontario has a conference, and we're so thrilled to be able to bring this conference back after a 6-year hiatus for the West. Next slide. Now, as a member of the Western Ontario Warrants Caucus, sometimes you need to ask, well, what are we getting for our buck? And we've made some huge accomplishments in the past year. We've ensured that we could retain our number of rural federal seats. If you recall, about 18 months ago, there was that look at the federal seat count and looking at rejigging those federal seat counts. And we were able to work with MPs in the region to ensure that they didn't take away a rural seat. We were looking at losing a couple of rural seats actually in Western Ontario, and we were successful in our advocacy and our work and our submissions in working with our MPs to make sure that rural seat count remained. We also advocated to the province and were able to reverse course May last year on that 3-lot farm severance, which would have been incredibly impactful for Western Ontario, more so than any other region in the province. We would have been looking at losing about 750,000 acres of farmland. So we were able to reverse course on that legislation, which was fantastic. Most recently, the leave to construct threshold. So that's increasing the threshold to get gas to our industrial facilities. And we've increased that from a 2 million threshold to 10 million threshold. So we're really excited about that. That means new build industrial will happen faster in our region, which is great. We secured funding for a community response pilot project in Lambton County. We have been secured attendance at the Provincial Housing Forum. And as I just mentioned, we have the Western Ontario Municipal Conference coming back. So some really great things we've been able to accomplish in the past year or so in Western Ontario. And that is all, unless there's any questions, Warden. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Questions of the report, of the presentation? Nope, seeing no questions. Thank you very much for coming. It's great to see you again.
Always a pleasure.
And we do have a motion that council receive the presentation, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, 2024 to 2025 priorities from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor Jankowski. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks. Okay. Now we're going to move into our public meeting. So we have a motion, council recess for the purpose of holding a planning public meeting at approximately 9:22 a.m. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. If any council member has pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting goes along. We need a motion to confirm our agenda so that the planning public meeting of June 20, 2024 agenda be approved. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have the minutes from the planning meeting of June the 6th. Is there any questions on any of those minutes? If not, then we have a motion that council minutes for the June 6, 2024 planning public meeting. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Duncan. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, then we're going to move into our report, and we have the County of Perth Official Plan Amendment number 222-2794848 Ontario Limited. And with us this morning, we have Jeff Bannon, the planner. So we'll let Jeff give his presentation. So welcome, Jeff. See you.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Excuse me, I can't read the slides. Is it possible to make it a little more better focused? They're very difficult to read for us out here.
And we can't hear back here.
Yeah. There's no way to focus it a little bit because it's so fuzzy. I'm wearing my glasses.
Cut the light off over there. See if I can get this one a little bit better for you, okay?
It's the kind of dance. We don't need to.
Can we selectively do the lights? Can we selectively dim the lights, maybe?
Can the lights be turned off over there? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. We also have a couple seats up here for anybody who does have low vision. You can go ahead and move up here. That should be able to accommodate that. And the request to speak a little louder, we can certainly work on that as well. Oh, let me yeah, I see. Got it?
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So Caroline Baker has submitted applications for an official plan amendment to plan a subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment. The applicant is also a co-proponent with the Township of Perth South of a municipal class environmental assessment to assess alternatives, solutions to meet the projected demands and identify and evaluate the alternative designs for the water and wastewater treatment systems in Stephenville. Next slide, please. The proposed amendment to the County of Perth official plan is to redesignate 2 blocks and proposed draft plan of subdivision from village to special village policy area to facilitate the proposed multi-unit development in the plan of subdivision. The site-specific policies were intended to permit apartment buildings with a maximum height of 3 stories and up to 24 units per building. The applicant has expressed a concern with the amendment regulating up to 24 units per building. So planning staff did agree to recommend a change to the draft official plan amendment, which is before you today, to stipulate a maximum density of 54 units per hectare for the apartment blocks. The change will result in the same total number of apartment dwelling units, but will allow for greater flexibility in the number of units per building, which would reduce the possibility of a future official plan amendment that might be needed. Section 6.48.1 of the county official plan provides guidelines for residential densities. Single detached dwellings are allowed to be up to 15 units per hectare. Semi-detached dwellings are to have a density of 15 to 25 units per hectare. Townhouse dwellings are to have a density of 25 to 40 units per hectare. And apartment dwellings are to have a density of 40 to 60 units per hectare. The proposed residential density provides a density of 21 units per hectare for the single detached dwellings, 15 units per hectare for the townhouses, 54 units per hectare for the apartment dwellings, with an overall density on the site of 19.11 units per hectare, and a density of 35.2 units per hectare for the townhouse and the apartment dwelling land uses together. The proposed apartment block density is within the official plan density for apartment dwellings for those targets. The draft of the official plan intends to have the subject lands remain as a village designation. The policies also include residential density targets of 52% for low density, which are singles and semis, 31% for a medium density development, which includes townhouses, apartment, duplexes, and apartment dwellings would be up to 3 stories in height, and 17% for high density developments, which are greater than 3 stories for the apartment dwellings. Applications for a draft plan of subdivision approval and zoning bylaw amendment have been submitted to facilitate the proposed development, but they will be considered by councils at future council meetings. For council's information, the draft plan of subdivision is proposed to accommodate a total of 302 dwelling units. That includes 92 single detached dwellings, 2 blocks, which total 168 apartment dwellings, and 42 townhouse units. Subdivision plan also includes 2 walkway blocks, a parkland block, stormwater management block, a block for a pumping station, and 7 local streets. Next slide, please. The zoning bylaw amendment is intended to rezone the subject lands to facilitate the proposed residential subdivision. It intends to rezone the subject lands from a future development FD-2 zone to a Hamlinge Village residential zone HVR with site-specific single detached dwelling and townhouse dwelling provisions. It's also intended to include site-specific provisions to allow for apartments as a permitted use and to introduce zoning provisions relating to building height, lot area per dwelling unit, frontage, setbacks, lot coverage, landscaped open space, and parking requirements. This report that's before you reviews the applications for the official plan amendment. Applications for draft plan subdivision approval and zoning bylaw amendments will be brought back to council for consideration once the applicant has completed the Class EA process, which will determine the sanitary and water servicing. Next slide, please. Comments have been received from agencies, will be addressed when bringing a report forward on the draft plan of subdivision. Through the public circulation, residents have expressed a concern with noise being generated through the construction of the subdivision and with an increase in noise to the proposed residential development. Subject lands are located within the settlement area and they're intended to be developed. In general, any construction will result in some disruption to the surrounding community, and the proposed residential development and amendment to allow for additional apartment dwelling units in the village designation is not expected to result in excessive noise in the village. Respondents have also noted that there will be an increase in the amount of greenhouse gases and impacts to the existing community as a result of the loss of farmland and the lack of employment opportunities for new residents. Again, the subject lands are located within a settlement boundary, and they're intended to be developed for residential purposes. The provision for a mix of residential dwelling units will help the County of Perth reach density targets in the official plan for residential growth in the County of Perth. They make for an efficient use of land, which reduces the overall agricultural land loss in the county. Allowing for higher densities in areas where they are intended and which can be supported by residential development contributes to a more complete community and prevents additional sprawl into prime agricultural areas. Subdivisions that include increased densities provide for additional residents that are able to support local businesses. If local businesses continue to develop and grow, additional jobs are created that are close to those residential subdivisions. Local jobs and businesses help to reduce commuting and the resulting greenhouse gases that could have a negative impact on the environment. Public has also expressed concerns with the lack of playground space, park space, and safety concerns with the park location. Comments have also been raised regarding the provision of services, traffic, and road improvements. So the proposed development is located within that settlement area, and the Class EA process will provide a recommendation on the type of infrastructure that will be utilized to provide sanitary services to the subdivision development. The applicant has provided the necessary studies, which conclude that the proposed density is able to be accommodated by either the private services or a municipal service to the subject lands. The necessary infrastructure will be available to meet the projected needs of the development, and the proposed density and the mix of land uses will eventually use the planned infrastructure. Planning staff are currently reviewing the proposed plan of subdivision and zone change application, and again, we'll provide a further analysis with a recommendation once it's being brought forward to the Township of Perth Council, or South Council. Perth South Council did hold a public meeting, held a meeting on May the 7th, and they have provided a recommendation to the County Council to approve the recommended official plan amendment. Planning staff have no concerns with the official plan amendment. We are recommending that Perth County Council that they approve official plan amendment 222. As the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, it conforms with the County of Perth official plan and represents good planning. I'm available to answer any questions related to the application.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So on the screen, we have Caroline Baker who's going to join us here in a second. Oh, there she is. Morning, Caroline. We're just starting our public meeting. Jeff has given his presentation, which I'm sure you heard, and I'm going to let you speak next, and then we're going to go to questions of the audience. So if you would like to give your presentation, that'd be great.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, good morning to the warden and
Just
members.
one
Just
second.
give it a second to let it catch up to you speaking.
You should be good now.
Good.
There, perfect.
Let me know if you have any issues. Good morning to the warden, members of County Council. My name is Caroline Baker. I'm a professional land use planner with Baker Planning Group. I'm here this morning on behalf of the owner and applicant for this development and official plan amendment. I do have a brief presentation. If it's acceptable to share screen, I can put that up, and you can let me know when you think it should be visible now.
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Bannon for his summary and presentation outlining the specific application before you this morning, which is solely the official plan amendment. The draft plan and subdivision and zoning would be at a later date. So just a little bit about the project team, some of the studies submitted as part of these planning applications. The engineering, MR Engineering and Design, traffic study by Salvini Consulting, noise work by Grid Engineering, survey by MTE, and Azimuth Environmental was retained to prepare the environmental assessment. So as outlined, the site is about 15.2 hectares in size, midpoint of the community on the south side of Huron Road. I'm sure County Council is familiar with this site. I know over the past few years, there has been different development proposals and environmental assessment work being undertaken. Well, certainly the site is currently used as an agricultural property. As Mr. Bannon mentioned, it is within the settlement area and it is designated for urban land uses. The development being considered today is a residential development that would be placed on the entire portion of the site that is in the settlement area. There's a range of residential uses proposed, certainly responding to needs in the community for a range of housing and creating more affordable and attainable units, extension of roads, an integrated park space and pedestrian system, as well as stormwater management and servicing. And certainly I'll touch on the servicing detail a little bit further on in the presentation. The slide in front of you is essentially a color-coded version of the concept plan for the site, north being to the top of the page, generally or map north. What you'll see on the east or right side of the page is Station Road, which exists. There would be 2 new municipal roads that would connect through Station Road. There are already frontages available for that road connection. There would be an interior network of roads that would allow connections to street-facing single detached dwellings and street-facing townhouses. There is a system of integrated walkways you'll see going from north to south to ensure that the residents are able to walk to the park that is proposed on the south side, which would be down here on block 101. As you move down the site, you'll see there is block 99 and block 100, which are the proposed low-rise apartment buildings. And this really gets to the nature and intent and need for the official plan before you this morning. So the purpose of the official plan is solely related to blocks 99 and 100. And it's to allow those apartment buildings to within each building, have greater than 8 units. The way the current county OP policy is structured is that apartments are a permitted use within the designation. The height is not limited to 3 stories. That limit is being imposed by the applicant, but they're seeking an increase in the number of units per building. Currently, it was capped at 8, and they're seeking to allow to have more dwelling units. This allows, as I'm sure you can appreciate, for more efficient building construction in terms of Ontario Building Code compliance, number of staircases, and allow for a more efficient and affordable form of development. Also on the site, you'll see on the south side, it's sort of in a blue color, the same color on your screen is the stormwater management pond and proposed communal servicing. So certainly I'll touch on the environmental assessment, but the work related to the EA has been ongoing for a number of years. And based on consultations with the Township of Perth South and Perth East and the county, as well as other stakeholders, the direction the EA is heading in terms of a recommendation, though not finalized, will be a communal sanitary system that would service just this development. So it'd be focused to this development only, and it would be a communal system. There is one just for reference in Shakespeare. So it'd be a very similar system that was constructed just over 10 years ago in Shakespeare. Wanted to provide some sample images. Certainly this is not the final building design, but just to give a sense of a similar product. This is in Huron County of a 3-story building that has surface amenities, so surface green space and surface parking, just to provide a visualization of what sort of a medium density apartment would look like. Just to touch upon the environmental assessment, I know when we had the meetings at Perth South, we did spend some time talking about EA and just wanted to make sure that we provided fulsome information on this application and all the work that is being done. So the environmental assessment is essentially a requirement under MECP, formerly known as the Ministry of the Environment, to confirm the required form of servicing that would be appropriate to the site. So certainly the township is a co-proponent, but being led by the applicant and is fully funded by the developer. And it engages stakeholders and public through various phases of that project. Essentially, the EA will consider 4 alternatives in its final recommendation, and every EA has to consider these, so it's not unique to this project. They always have to consider the do nothing. There's an alternative to use private systems, so private well and septic. The third alternative is a full municipal system in the community, and the fourth is limiting growth. A number of factors are included in those studies, looking at public safety, aesthetic appearance, noise, odor, the need to expand future properties. There's a number of considerations that'll come forward in those recommendations that'll be presented to Township of Perth South and then ultimately approved by the Ministry of the Environment. Certainly based on the stakeholder conversations and discussions and dialogue that have occurred over the past number of years, there's been a strong and clear preference for a communal system that only services this development and not bringing full services to the whole community and not having private individual services. So certainly the project team will work to finalize those reports and provide it to the Ministry of the Environment. Just back in terms of the land use planning component of the applications, as Mr. Bannon mentioned, there is the official plan amendment to increase the number of dwelling units within each and part building to be greater than 8. I believe Mr. Bannon touched on the zoning, so I'll just jump over here. This is the summary of the draft plan of subdivision that would come back at a later date, essentially summarizing the proposed lots and blocks that would be created along with the servicing block and the parkland block. And at that time, there would be a number of conditions subject to planning staff's recommendation when that comes back. There were a number of technical studies prepared in support of these applications. In tandem with the class environmental assessment was a functional servicing report that confirmed the use of new potable water deep wells that would service just this development, utilizing a stormwater management pond, but also low impact development as a more environmentally friendly approach, and ensuring that the stormwater management facility is, of course, outside of all regulated floodplain areas. And we, of course, continue to work with Upper Thames Region Conservation Authority. Traffic study was prepared and reviewed by the Ministry of Transportation. Certainly this site is within their permit controlled area. So they are certainly a commenting agency. We've had a number of discussions with them. The traffic study concluded that appropriate road access exists to accommodate the proposed trips that are generated, albeit a new 15-meter left turn lane. So if you're coming from Stratford into the community, turning left on Station Road, there is a need for a left turn lane, and that likely can be accommodated through a painting exercise on the road. I just did want to note while we're under traffic that the intent is that this development will either meet or exceed all parking requirements in the township zoning bylaw. With respect to the planning analysis, the planning report recommended that this application was consistent with provincial policy, being in a defined settlement area intended to accommodate growth with the opportunity for servicing, for road infrastructure, as well as the ability to provide a greater range and mix of residential uses to the community and working to achieve goals related to affordable and attainable housing. So that would be the end of my presentation. Certainly it's a consideration of just the official plan amendment, and we look forward to being back to you at a later date with the draft plan of subdivision. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. We have a number of residents with us this morning, and you can answer some of the questions that they're going to present. So we're going to move to that part of the meeting now where the members of the public can come up and ask questions. There are several of you that have already pre-registered. We're going to start with that list, and then we'll open it up the floor to everyone. So as you speak, we'll have you come up one at a time, sit there where Jeff is sitting or beside Jeff if he wants to stay there, and we want your name and your address so council knows who's here. So we're going to start out with anyone who wants to speak in opposition of the planning amendment. So I have Rick Matthews here this morning. And I'm sorry if I pronounced some of your names wrong. There's a couple that I know I'm going to stumble over, and I apologize for that. Well, welcome, Rick. If you could give us your address, please.
It's Rick Matthews. I live at the intersection of Station Road and Line 32, so to the south of the proposed subdivision. My concern, our concern is traffic. The estimate of the number of cars that are going to come out of this subdivision and are going to be domiciled there, I would say is roughly 500. 500 cars, of which 250 are attributable to the apartment buildings. If you've been on Station Road, it's hard to imagine 500 cars coming in and out of that subdivision, turning right at the highway, or in fact, turning right to go on the gravel road back towards line 32. 500 cars. That's high density in what is a hamlet, a quasi-real rural setting. It's just hard to imagine how that can be worked. I've had a quick look at the traffic study. I would submit it's once over lightly. They do not address any effect on traffic moving south to line 32, which, as you know, turns into Lorne Avenue and services the southern part of Stratford, where a lot of people coming out of this subdivision could end up working. I would say the county is going to have to consider, if they're allowing 500 cars to come out of this subdivision in the morning and 500 cars to come back in at the end of the day, I would submit that they're going to have to consider paving the gravel road, turning what is a nice rural gravel road into an access road to this subdivision. That intersection at the corner of line 32 and Station Road is going to become a major intersection, and it is already fraught with accidents. And I think that intersection will become much more difficult. The county and the township are going to need to budget significant road improvements going south if they are going to approve this subdivision. So that's my, I do not believe the traffic study that indicates there's no significant change. It's incomprehensible that you can drop 500 cars into. I don't have any questions. These are comments.
Good.
I imagine that the planning consultant will have all kinds of answers, but I do not believe the traffic study. I don't think it's credible. For anybody who's driven on or hung out around Station Road, they will clearly understand that. You have to get this decision right. If you get this decision wrong, you will dramatically impact Sebringville and Station Road in particular. And I would take pause before you're approving a high-density development in a rural setting. I'm not even talking about the environmental concerns of not having any municipal services. I don't know whether Perth County has ever approved a subdivision that has no connection to municipal services before. But I just think you have to get this decision right. And if you get it wrong, you will dramatically impact on life in Sebringville in this location. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. I did forget to. I did forget to announce, we're only going to allow everyone 5 minutes to speak because we have several who want to speak, and otherwise we'll be here all day. So if you have new things to bring up, please bring them up. If you're just going to repeat what everybody said, please make it short. So the next on our list is Anne Marie
Stacia.
Staken.
Thank you, my husband Rick spoke on my behalf.
Okay, all right, then you're not going to come up. Okay, then we have Doug Luckhart.
Jeff, you can sit up beside me. You don't have to be shy. Not good at formal stuff. Rhonda could testify to that, but anyways.
Go ahead.
First thing I'm supposed to do is thank you for the opportunity. So thank you.
And state your name and address.
My name's Doug Luckhart, 348 Huron Road, Sebringville. Just a little history. What you're proposing, I've stared at for 69 years, that exact field. And I've lived in the residence, and I probably know a few things that maybe might not show up on your studies. But anyways, the traffic study, real quick, being that was fresh. I don't believe it either, and I hadn't even read it. And the reason I don't believe it is when the intersection, Highway 8 and Station Road, the north lane is 19 feet, 1 inch from the curb to the center of the pavement. The sidewalk is 6 foot, 6 inches, and an additional 8 feet to the church building. You go to the south lane, the line guy didn't get it right. It's 19 feet, 4 inches. Sidewalks, 8 feet, 8 inches, an additional 9 feet until you hit the old post office, the building itself. Now, the mirror I've trucked all my life. The mirror spread is exactly minimum of 10 feet, so the trucks can see the trailer, because the trailer is 8.5 feet. Mirrors are 6 to 8 inches, and the framework to keep it steady. Do the math. Just do the math. How does 19 feet go into over 20 feet? Or how does 20 feet fit into 19 feet? It doesn't work. And I've drove trucks all my life. And at that rate, every truck that goes through Sebringville would be losing a mirror. So question these reports. Anyways, let's get to the good stuff, okay? I'm concerned of the studies. I've said that, okay? There's no environmental step 2 done here. And you people realize there's an abandoned fuel yard right beside the runoff ponds, correct? You guys, did you know that? Prep fuels. And the reason I can verify that, because I hauled the oil in. Was there spills? Yes. When you walk on the ground, it was tacky when I was a teenager. And this is where the ponds are coming. And that is exactly beside. I don't know what this big hurry is for it, running things parallel so we can speed things up. This is a major decision. And under no circumstance are the village people or hamlet people or whatever going to allow to be overrun with what is starting to be looking like false reports when you talk traffic and that. Go out and do the measurements yourself. Now, because that's going to jeopardize public safety, and I'm pretty sure Perth County does not want to jeopardize any human lives. There's so many other solutions out there. I was always taught if you are taking apart a problem, try to have a solution. Well, if we're talking that we're going to use up agricultural land, and that's fine if that's what it is, okay? But would it not make more sense to build something like this? And Jim, I'm just going to pick on you because you're in the audience here, okay? Take your farm. And we know Doug Ford can rezone things like that from the green belt and that, so that shouldn't be. And we could go ahead and build the whole thing, even the future stuff, closer to Stratford, to hook on to anything you would in case something didn't work. And I would not want Perth South to be on the hook for that, or Perth County. You could do everything. You know what? The Schoonerwood boys will give Jim all the money he wants, and he'll live happily ever after. Okay, and problem solved. It's because no traffic problem, right? We're not even hitting the highway. And we're built onto the best county roads Perth County's got. And you know what? Without hitting the village, you can get to Mitchell, Stratford, and Seaforth, and St. Mary's. So in closing, you know, like I'm really disappointed, okay, that this thing everybody wants to go so fast. We got to run this parallel and this, and we don't even have studies complete. So my suggestion here is today is go back to the old fashioned way of step by step. Don't worry about running parallel and this one's going to base on that one after we get this report. Take a breath, slow down, because this is critical. And like the gentleman said before, we got to get it right first time because you don't get it second time. Now, anyways, to make a long story short, I know I was told I got 10 minutes and then it would be 5 minutes of when I got my letter, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm open to questions.
Questions? Nope. Okay, thanks, Doug.
Okay. Well, can I say one more thing?
Quick.
Okay. You know what? It doesn't matter. We won't tie up your time.
Okay.
Okay?
Next is Tom Scott.
Morning, Council. Thanks for letting me speak to you today. My name's Tom Stott. I live at 19 Huron Road. I'm not technically in the village, but we're R5. And everything that happens in the village will affect us. We moved to our house in 1980. Sorry? Sorry, yeah, I have that problem, I guess. Yeah, we could hardly afford our handyman special, but we've made it into our home. We've been living there for 44 years now. We've seen a lot of changes. The road keeps getting wider, trucks get closer, the kids are rowdier. But I can remember when Boyce Street had problems with their well. And we ended up having problems with our well. Pretty sure it was because of theirs. Now, granted, when we moved there, our well wasn't very deep. It was deep enough, but it was a small casing. You couldn't put a submersible down there. So they had to cobble something together. Since then, we've drilled a new well and should be okay, but I'm still concerned. You're going to be taking a lot of water out of that ground. And Boyce Street residents will tell you that they still run out of water once in a while. I personally believe this project is too big, especially with the apartment buildings. I've been in business since 1977, and I would never move ahead with a project like this without all the studies that I would require in my hand. I don't understand why you're moving ahead on this at this point. Why do you have to hurry? Just wait. Just wait for the studies. They might just come back and say, you know what, not going to work. Then we're all done, I think. Anyway, I don't have anything else. If you have any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? Councilor McKenzie?
Just one question, and you may not be able to answer this, but I'm sure we'll get the answer as the day unfolds. So Boyce Street, you talk about the water there. Now, are they on drilled wells or is it all dug wells?
There's one well for the whole thing.
area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a
drilled well.
Sorry?
It's a drilled well.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
The communal system.
Okay.
Yep, they all are on it. I believe it gets serviced by Perth South fairly regularly.
Oh, but Aqua does the technical stuff,
Oh, that's fine.
testing.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, now we're going to open it up to the floor. You can come up one at a time, please. Speaking in opposition?
What else would you?
Just have you
Sit down, please.
Sit if you could, just because the camera's right behind you and
They'll get your back.
Then I just don't want to sit with my back to my neighbors, so I'll just sit here if that's okay. Is this okay?
Sure.
I'll make it work.
Thank you. I'm afraid there's been a little bit of a mix-up and I don't have my presentation available for view today. But it
Give your name and address, please.
Adrian Tooling, 244 Boyce Street in Sebringville. And I am here today representing Get Concerned Perth County. We requested that Perth South Council reverse their May 7th, 2024 recommendation that this official plan amendment be granted. Their recommendation was premature because it is not fully informed. We are confident that with relevant information that has provided clarity recently and an appreciation of the importance of informed decision-making in this regard, that councils will take pause. It is important to consider that your constituents are here today not to complain, but to advocate for the same communities you call home and were elected to represent. We are neighbors, and our participation in this process should be welcomed and not merely tolerated. We are advocating for our communities and neighbors because we feel it is necessary to ensure that our councils allow us to participate in the democratic process. If not for dismissed concerns, unanswered emails, and lack of dedicated and willing representation, we wouldn't be here. As it turns out, many of the concerns that we've raised have been legitimate despite being dismissed. And we can all learn from this experience. We've been advised by consultants that there is very good reason to press pause on this process. Not only are there a lot of pending questions, but proceeding without critical information about the serviceability potential of the candidate lands introduces risks that may not be fully appreciated. We aren't anti-development. We are pro-responsible and fully informed decision-making with decisions that may be the most consequential for Perth South and decisions that have the potential to propel us forward or cost us dearly. The proposed official plan amendment is to be considered within the existing context of the Perth County official plan. The plans are informed by community input, background reports, the provincial policy statement, and the Planning Act. Amendments, therefore, should be taken under careful consideration and granted sparingly. The goals of the official plan clearly outline that village and hamlet designations have unique considerations, that limits to growth do exist and need to be recognized, that limited amounts of growth are to occur where appropriate. As well, growth within villages is intended to be logical and orderly and responsive to local needs. It doesn't appear that the proposed development considers the goals outlined in the official plan. These are the residential uses for village are limited to single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, duplexes, apartments above or to the rear of commercial establishments, and multiple residential developments such as small apartment buildings or seniors housing containing 8 or residential units or less. The candidate lands are not zoned for townhouses, and the official plan clearly outlines that the apartments, if there are any, are to be 8 units or less. We currently do not have in Perth South one apartment building with 24 units, let alone 7. For context, the difference between village and serviced urban areas can be better understood looking at the new draft official land use designations. You don't have the benefit of this image, but the official plan states that the majority of development should be directed to serviced urban areas for very obvious reasons. We can see from the official plan land use designations that Mitchell, for example, has commercial, employment, institutional, recreational, and urban mixed land uses. Sebringville has none of these. During a presentation at the May 7th, 2024 Perth South Council meeting, a few members of council asked questions about the density, and in particular, where the number 168 units came from. It was stated that the provision for 168 units was already approved. The new official plan does state that a steady increase in the share of medium and high density housing is required to respond to housing needs. This is something we can all agree upon. But the official plan specifically gives density targets of 17% high density, which may be low. But this proposed development would bring Sebringville to 37% high density to help Perth County achieve their density targets. That's really old school thinking, that you put all the high density in one place. Old school thinking has no place today or in the future. It was explained that 168 units created the minimum allowable density of 54 units per hectare. We also understand that because the triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses are not included under the village designation in the official plan, that residential density would be less than 25 units per hectare. This proposed development, if it proceeds as planned, would give us almost 40 units per hectare in a small unserviced village. That doesn't make any sense. Boston Comprehensive Review helped inform the development of our official plan, including density targets. There are tables available for public review. The population forecast for Perth South is 120 persons between 2021 and 2031. The employment forecast for the same period is 255 jobs. Recall that the official plan states that growth in villages should be responsive to local needs. We also see that the forecasted incremental housing growth in Perth County is 321 units between 2021 and 2026. Of these, 18% are high density. Again, it may be low, but this is the information that we have all accepted and rely upon. 18% of 321 units is 58 high-density units for Perth County. The proposed development includes 3 times that high-density units in a small car-dependent village with a fraction of that population. And over the longer term, we have a table that indicates that forecasted housing demand for apartments outside of urban serviced areas, that includes hamlets and villages like Sebringville, is 73 between now and 2048. 73 apartments in Perth County between now and 2048. But we're looking at putting 168 in a small little village in Sebringville to help you guys reach your density targets. What about the provincial policy statement? There are no density targets referenced in it. When you read it, the proposed development does not have to satisfy many of the land use patterns. Efficiently using existing infrastructure and public service facilities to avoid unjustified expansion, we can't take that one off. Prepare for the impacts of a changing climate? Absolutely not with this very outdated plan. And support active transportation or develop transit supportive communities? I don't think that that has been satisfied. We understand that the class 1 land currently being farmed with corn right now, pictured in an image in a box on the screen, will be sacrificed for development. There's not a lot we can do about that. We accept that there will be changes necessary to accommodate new neighbors in our changing world. We'd like to share a vision for a once-in-a-generation opportunity that serves the needs of the present and the future. A development that serves as an example in Perth County and beyond while considering our environment and rural character. One that draws people here not for affordability alone, but because it's a great place to live. It's going to be something that we can all be proud of and a legacy that you can feel proud leaving behind. I have images, we can't show them, but heat pumps, solar panels, cisterns for water collection, a daycare, a market. Why not have a rideshare program with electric vehicles, walking paths, community gardens and composting? All of these things can be accommodated within the current official plan. Why is this official plan amendment and development even under consideration? Even a highly respected planning consultant who champions affordable housing and increased densities to achieve this thinks it's absurd. So it begs some questions. What is the intent here? Who wins? And who assumes the risks? Why are we moving forward with a process that is flawed? What we do know for sure is that we can do better for our communities and our new neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Oh, okay, thank you. Maybe we can take a pause here, and I would like Caroline and maybe Jeff could. I'm sorry, but I have the floor, and when I'm talking, you do not clap. So I'm going to go back to what I started to say. I would like Caroline and Jeff, and maybe they can explain the process, because we've heard that multiple times here already. So maybe you can explain, Caroline, the process of why and how we got here. Is that feasible?
Yes, yeah, certainly, if you can hear me.
Just 1 second. It's got to catch up. You should be good now.
We're good?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'll get the hang of it next time. No, certainly happy to answer some of the questions, if that would help as well. But in terms of how we got here, so certainly, as you're aware, when there's a planning application, there is a number of standard steps and processes that occur. A developer or applicant will come in for formal consultation. A list of required studies are noted. The applicant then takes that back, prepares the studies and reports, and submits an application to the county or the township, again, depending on which planning application, given the two-tier planning system in the county. Those reports and studies are received by the county and the township. They are reviewed. Under the Planning Act, they're deemed complete if that is an agreement. And then the planning approvals process starts. The plans and reports get circulated for comment. A statutory public meeting it's held, and ultimately, and Mr. Bannon can speak to this, but staff provide a recommendation and their independent recommendation on an application. A number of studies, as I mentioned in my presentation, have been submitted and circulated. Certainly have taken detailed notes in terms of the comments and questions from the community this morning. I do want to just reiterate, however, though, that the official plan amendment is not approving the development. It's not approving the draft plan of subdivision. It is proposing to amend a policy in the official plan on a designation that already exists. So the site is in a settlement boundary. The application is not proposing to change the actual designation. It's proposing to change one policy that would allow for more than 8 dwelling units within an apartment building, which is a permitted use. I did want to just quickly note, based on the county's official plan, the proposed apartments are considered medium density, not high density in terms of the definition. So it would fall in those percentages. Certainly, we can appreciate that this is a change for the community. That's why we certainly look forward to these questions and continuing to have these discussions. But again, as a planner looking at provincial policy, the county OP, the draft county OP, it's looking to move to more efficient use of land and attainable and affordable housing. And certainly servicing has been first and foremost in this application through the environmental assessment and continues to process through, likely intending for a communal system. I did just quickly want to touch on traffic. Certainly often traffic is an important, or always is an important consideration and a concern. The level of traffic in the traffic impact study. So the study was prepared by Julia Salvini of Salvini Consulting. And I think the point we had tried to make at the public meeting is that it is a change. I don't think anybody is saying there isn't a change or there won't be a change to traffic on Station Road. What the study concludes is that the amount of traffic is suitable and appropriate for a municipal road that is paved and maintained. Certainly will be upgrades to the road. So if you look at the traffic study, it does demonstrate that.
Excuse me, she is speaking, and please respect that. Sorry, Caroline, go ahead.
That's all right, that the level of service would be considered to be a level A. So it has a high level of service. Certainly municipal roads are designed to accommodate traffic and residential traffic. So I did just want to touch upon that. And certainly there was some comments about road widths. There is full legal surveys being done on both Huron Road for the left turn lane, Station Road, and the subdivision. So those are being prepared by an Ontario land surveyor. I think that was certainly any other questions, happy, but those were just some of the high level, just some feedback to answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Is there anything else you wish to add at this time of the first presenters we've had? I'll let you do it now and then we'll move on to the next ones.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just going to add that certainly the draft plan of subdivision, which is the actual creation of lots and blocks and roads, and the zoning, which is the setbacks, would be at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, please come to the table and give us your name and address. Yep, thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you again to Perth County Council for allowing us to say our piece today. We're very, very emotional about this, so much so that I have walked, Kathy Winhold, 255 Boy Street. Been there 21 years, love it. We are not NIMBYs. We want a development that makes sense. It makes sense for the future, for our kids, for our grandkids. We want people to want to come here, not be shoved into a field because a density mandate has to be filled. So, forgive me. I'm sorry I'm so emotional about this. It's just, you cannot pretend that this amendment will not change every new build in the county. It sets a precedent. We don't want to see this precedent rammed through. Why rush to approve something without all the facts? 2 days ago, I was told by Perth South that they did not have all the facts. If the county approves a zoning change and then learns of expensive flaws in regard to infrastructure, groundwater impacts on neighbors, inadequate wastewater, road improvement cost, Huron Road highway access cost, local drainage impacts, and potential I'm not sure what this word, I know it, leachate from the neighboring contaminated Godrey-Exeter rail line. The county will end up in a lawsuit with the developer or have to shoulder more of the cost to satisfy the developer. So all we ask, we your constituents are asking is please, don't jump with your eyes closed. Wait for all the facts coming so you can look before you leap. As I said, we moved on July 1st, 2024. We had no intention of moving out to Sebringville. We lived in Stratford for many, many years, raised my kids there, re-raised another set of kids on our street, loved it. We've had our well run dry on Boyce Street more than a few times. Try bathing in muddy water. Who wants this? We want you to be safe and be cautious and take the time to be sure your ducks are in a row. We could obviously not dream of drinking this water. Do you remember Walkerton? Why did this happen? Because rules were not followed, and legislatively, this current provincial government is removing all the rules. Who wins? The money-making developer. Who loses? The people being poisoned as the rules were ignored. Has this happened before? You know it most likely has, less than 30 minutes away. Has wastewater treatment ponds failed? Ask North Waterloo, St. Agatha, St. Clements, and Heidelberg. It hasn't been that many years ago. Ask those constituents how much it cost to rebuild these systems that failed. Guess who had to pay? The unfortunate folks living there. We're not asking you not to build a development. We would love to be able to sit down with you and work together to make something sustainable, more environmentally friendly, and in the long run, it'll cost you less. I have to say, unless you've actually been on Station Road at 6:45 a.m., 7:45 a.m., 8:45 a.m., or anytime after 2:30, 3 o'clock, you can't get on the highway. I've had very good friends say to me, my truckers can't get on the highway just a few miles past you outside of Mitchell. So they are ramming on with their four-way flashers. Now, what does that sound like? That's how we're gonna have to get off Station Road. There's just no way this will work the way it's proposed. Take the density down even to less than half. It's still too many, but maybe we could live with something like that. Trying to put this much density in that location makes no sense anywhere. It's not close enough to Stratford. Are you gonna have affordable housing people walk to Stratford for their appointments? I've learned this week that 2 doctors in Stratford are leaving. These people that are gonna come moving here, where are they gonna find medical? I've actually gone to, I'd say about 80% door to door in Stephenville. It's amazing, the wonderful people. Everywhere in Stephenville, people have lived there all their life, more generations. They know what the issues can be. They have lived through, they know where the wells are. They know the wells can go dry. Why cannot you see that? Why are you believing reports that aren't completed? Why are you moving forward when reports are not completed? It scares the willy out of me. I think it should scare you. Ultimately, your decision reflects upon all of us who live there. Thank you.
I just have a question, a follow-up question for Caroline.
Yes, okay,
Can I just do it here?
yep. However you broadcast your voice that everybody can hear.
Okay. So you suggest, Caroline, that the density of the proposed apartments is not considered high density? But according to the official plan, 54% density, which is what would be proposed in those apartment blocks, is high density because it's between it goes up to 60. So 60 is the maximum density, 54% is also high density. Secondly, the access to a subdivision, a new subdivision, should be made by a county road, not a residential street. Our residential street, and the reason is because a lot of traffic through a residential street compromises the safety of the people who live on that residential street. I know you're suggesting that this official plan amendment is only about more units per building. But there seems to be a misunderstanding as to what the official plan amendment purports to do. Yes, it deals with increasing the number of apartments, but it also represents a commitment to form and quantity of the development in the specific location of the official plan amendment within the subjected lands. So we're basically saying, if we approve this amendment, we're saying to the developer, we know that we're able to service exactly what you're proposing, exactly where you're putting it. And we don't have the information to say that yet. So this is very premature. We don't have any analysis to suggest that any new water system is going to affect the neighboring wells, or that the runoff can be accommodated. If it's surface, where does it go? Talk to the people on the other side of the highway and ask them about the drainage issues and how the drain narrows down and causes all kinds of flooding.
Okay, excuse me, you asked a question.
Okay.
We'll go back to the question. Okay, Caroline, please.
Through the warden, I think the first question was about medium or high density. Certainly, you're correct that the county official plan has units per hectare ranges suggested for forms of housing. So single detached, townhouses, apartments. I believe Mr. Bannon summarized it in his presentation earlier this morning. The reference to medium density was also the discussions in the county OP about the description. So low density being single family, medium density being townhouses, low rise apartments. The rationale for determining this is density isn't just based on the units per hectare. It's a combination of the form of development. And we also look to things like the building height. And given that they're being limited to 3 stories, that's the discussion around medium density. Relating to servicing, certainly I'm not the project engineer, but have reviewed the reports and can confirm that functional servicing report has been prepared and submitted to the township that demonstrates how stormwater management will be addressed and outletted, how the wells will function, as well as the proposed communal sanitary treatment facility. Thank you.
Those haven't been made available to the public.
Excuse me. Pardon?
They haven't been made available to the public.
Well, nothing's made available to the public until council actually sees it, and we've just seen it today. So that's why no one in the public has seen it yet.
Before the public meeting. This would have been good to have for the public during the public meeting. That's good.
Okay, anyone else? Caroline, you want to say something else? Go ahead.
I apologize, through the warden, I did want to just clarify that the functional servicing report was submitted as part of the planning applications. And my understanding, Mr. Bannon can certainly confirm, but I believe you can view those at the township offices. I'm not sure about the county, but there's the traffic, certainly residents have seen the traffic study, would have been part of that package. So there's planning, traffic, servicing, noise, that entire package.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Grant Perks. I live at 140 Station Road. I'm a retired property assessor. I notice things that happen in the village, being a property assessor. Take a look at Station Road. Take a look at the development that has gone on private properties. Just about every house on Station Road has had development done. Myself, I put a steel roof on my house. I've lived there for 38 years. And I'm looking at the development that's happened in our village for the last 30 years. And it's not the development that I'm seeing that's going to be in my backyard. It's not fair to the property owners in our village to put that density in there. That isn't required. There's federal and provincial money available for this development that they want to do here. And it's like, hey, build it and they'll come. The requirement isn't in our village for that sort of a development. Develop it the way they have done for the last 30 years. In Black Creek Estates, people came here, they paid good money to live in a rural area. You're not going to have a rural area if you put this development in with the density you want put in there. If you make a mistake, we're going to be paying for it. Every property owner. That includes the farmers out in the country and the people, the residential people. We don't have a lot of industry in Perth South. There isn't the big bucks coming in. It has to be paid by property owners. Keep that in mind, because if you make a mistake, take Shakespeare, they're having no end of problems. They had a similar building expansion there. Talk to them. And council, we don't have anybody in the village on the council. So I don't think we're getting the attention that we require. Listen to us, we live here.
Anyone else?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak.
Your name and
My
address.
name is Hans Dijk, and I'm from Boy Street. The applicant has provided the necessary studies which conclude that a proposed density is able to be accommodated by either private services or a municipal service to the subject lands. It is assumed that there are more studies than just the Functional Servicing Report, the FSR, and the Planning Justification Report, the PJR, that are available online on which you base these comments. Is there a copy of these of any other studies? It is the FSR and the PJR that you are referring to. It is unclear on what basis the above statement is made, as well as why you would be proceeding with the approval of OPA 222 at this time. The entirety of the commentary of the PJR in relation to sanitary services states that there are no existing gravity sanitary sewers available for the site. The preferred sanitary servicing strategy includes constructing a new communal sewage collection and treatment system. The FSR's contribution to the knowledge base related to wastewater servicing, other than a schematic and some flow calculations, states that sanitary servicing, existing sanitary sewage system. Currently, there is no sanitary sewage system infrastructure within the site limits. The town of Sebringville does not have gravity sewers. All properties within the settlement area utilize on-site individually owned and maintained sanitary sewage systems, a septic system. Proposed sanitary servicing strategy. The subject site will be serviced at a proposed communal system for sewage treatment to service the new residential lots. A class environmental assessment, EA, will be required and will run in parallel to the applications under the integrated planning approvals process. Similar systems are located in nearby town centers, with the nearest being located in Shakespeare, Ontario. A schematic of the proposed communal system for sewage treatment is located in an appendix. Preliminary sanitary design flows are also located in this appendix, Appendix H. Based on preliminary sewage generation calculations, the total peak daily sewage flow generated from the site is 12.8 liters per second. Unless I missed it, there doesn't appear to be any indication as to the receiving body for the effluent generated by the communal wastewater system in either of these reports. If it is a subsurface, there needs to be a minimum, some associated hydrogeological analysis to ensure the soils can accommodate the volume of effluent and that the existing private wells are not impacted. If it is surface discharge, there needs to be appropriate analysis to demonstrate the water quality within the receiving water body, whatever it is maintained to provincial standards. There strangely appears to be no information available through this process regarding the disposal of effluent. Likewise, there appears to be no information regarding investigation of the potential for well interference associated with the proposed communal well in relation to the existing private wells located in close proximity to the proposed development. It is stated that there are both private and municipal servicing options available, but don't appear to be the public with information regarding what these wastewater services options are, other than the incomplete references to private communal wastewater servicing. I have no clue where a municipal wastewater servicing option would come from, as the closest system appears to be kilometers away. I know the developers are going to do a Class EA, and I assume related to both water and wastewater. And in recognition of this, you state that the Class EA will run in parallel to the applications under the integrated planning approvals process. The Class EA has apparently yet to be completed. As a result, I do not understand how you can say that appropriate servicing solution exists. If the Class EA process is to run parallel with the approvals process, I would respectfully suggest that you are out in front of your skis in recommending the OPA 222. OPA 222 is only viable if there is a demonstrated servicing solution. That does not yet appear to be the case based on the information I can find that is available to the public. In note, in your report to County Council, that the latest UTRCA comments state, is a communal sewage system, treatment system still proposed? I would respectfully suggest, if even the Conservation Authority doesn't know what servicing solution is being proposed, that you have a problem here. In a world where residents have absolutely no appeal rights, it is critical that the decision-making be properly informed, and that the information on which such approvals are based is publicly available so the public can provide informed comments to decision makers for consideration. In the absence of such transparency, the trust necessary in such a system breaks down to the detriment of all involved. I fully recognize that this information may be available and that we may simply have missed it in the search. If that's the case, we apologize, but it is available. If it is available, I certainly would have assumed that it would have been appropriately referenced in your report to Planning Committee. That does not appear to be the case. I look forward to the opportunity to review additional studies. Thank you very much.
Caroline, do you wish to respond to any of that?
Certainly through the warden, the class environmental assessment reports have been prepared in draft. They are going through that process and will form part of the public discourse. Certainly, they look at all of the items that you've listed regarding the collection, the treatment, and the discharge, and those are all subject to MECP, being the Ministry of the Environment, regulations and approvals process. And certainly we are aware of Upper Thames comments. We've had a number of meetings with them, and they are aware of the preference for a communal system. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? You've already spoke once, I know, and
Just ask a question.
a quick one.
The quick one is, can anyone tell me why the last proposed development failed? I have been hearing from neighbors and friends that perhaps it was because MTO didn't allow it to go at that time, but I don't actually remember. I did live here then, and it's kind of gone over my head, so I just wonder what the answer is. First developer, I think Santini, I think he went bankrupt. Second developer, I'm not sure why that was stopped, because
Santini was the second.
Santini was the second one. Well, who's the first one?
First one was Bob Scott,
Bob Scott.
and he wanted to put in 50 houses, and that was opposed by the communities. The next one was by Mr. Santini, and as you indicated what happened with him, and now we're at the third one, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? No, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support?
That's a joke.
I have to ask the question, that's part of the process.
Point of order.
Thank you, please do not interrupt. Council, do you have any questions? Councillor Kassenberg?
Thank you, Warden Agus. I just have a simple question, I think, for Ms. Baker. My question is, at least 4 times in your comments, you referenced attainable and affordable. Would you like to define what you mean by that at this point in time, so we understand what your definition is, and then perhaps comment on the commitment of the proponent towards affordable and attainable?
Certainly through the warden, and thank you for the question, because as I think we all know, there's been a murky waters related to affordable and attainable housing and the various definitions. Based on my work in Perth and Huron County and a number of different development projects looking to include affordable and attainable, the current approach is to utilize the recently released provincial numbers in terms of affordable housing. Certainly they're using the 80% of average market value. I'm sure you've had the opportunity to see they've published tables for each of the 4 lower tiers in Perth County. So the applicant is looking particularly on the rental side within the proposed apartment buildings to include affordable units based on those figures.
If I might, I disagree that that's the current provincial standard. My own take is that their release of information community by community with regards to development charges has refactored their approach to affordable and attainable. And so I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation as of this date. The numbers vary dramatically based on the 2 different definitions, and I want to draw your attention to that. I do have one more question, if I might. The second question is, has any consideration been given in the preparation of this proposal towards the implications of additional residential units that can be, as of right, inserted into such subdivisions and which would dramatically increase the density in certainly the single family home, single lots on this proposal, and what the implications of that are for servicing?
Through the warden, you are correct. Through the provincial legislation, I know there's been a number of bills over the last few years. The province has put forward the ability to put in secondary suites in singles, street townhouses, and semis. Certainly, there would be the opportunity within the units, being the singles and the street townhouses, to accommodate a secondary suite. There hasn't been a specific intent of the developer to put those in. It could be an option, and we've been working with the project engineer to look at how that would relate to sanitary and water capacity and usage.
And traffic on that, in that scenario? I mean, I think it would be incumbent for this council to understand fully the implications of complete use of ARU provisions, both on traffic and on servicing.
If that's, sorry, I don't know if through the warden, my understanding in working with the township's peer review engineers, this has been a very topical discussion across numerous development applications, and looking to ensure that essentially future proofing, as you say, that a homeowner add a secondary suite, that there's the appropriate capacity to add that, even though it's permitted as of right, is ensuring that it's planned ahead of time. Certainly, you know, there may present more challenges in existing neighborhoods that have already been developed, but certainly as it relates to traffic, as I noted in the traffic study, with the proposed development without the secondary suites, there is determined to be a high level of service on Station Road. And the development includes, I believe it's 92 singles and 42 street townhouses, and there is 168 apartment units.
Okay, other members of council, anyone with questions? No, okay, then we're going to go to any other business for this part of the meeting, any announcements? If not, then we will adjourn the public meeting, and the motion is that the planning public meeting be adjourned at 10:44 a.m. Need a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Jankowski, second by Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Have we everybody, we take a 2-minute break, and anyone that wishes to leave, we will give you that time, and then council will come back. Okay, so we're back. We have a motion that regular council reconvene at 10:59 a.m. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we are going to have a delegation by Mr. Chris Rader. So he's here to talk about the Perth County official plan update. So Mr. Rader, welcome to council.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Rader. I'm 1940, line 37 in Northeast Hope or Perth East, whatever you want to call it. So what I would like to do today is address my concerns or our group's concerns for the proposed rezoning of the natural environment in the Perth County. So next slide. Okay, so yeah, I didn't know whether there's automatic zoning or not. Okay. So my presentation is basically going to address these topics. The rezoning is not necessary. There's a strong landowner opposition to this and the financial implications of the proposed rezoning and legal action exposure. And I'm going to propose an alternate plan, something, a compromise. Okay. So we can go next. And basically, I say the rezoning is not necessary, and this is my opinion. It's also a lot of people that I've talked to. Basically, the woodlot definition is 4 times the provincial standard. We've already got, our zoning is stronger. We also have a forestry bylaw that is 19.76 prevent the provincial standard. The new provincial standards are being developed. And I can't read. New provincial standards are being developed. Changing rules to the PPS will affect the county's interpretation and implementation of the unknown future rules. The change to the Conservation Authorities Act on February 16th, 2024, which limits the power of conservation authorities, was passed into law by province. So you have a difficult job. We just went through the Sebringville stuff. Everybody is opposed to it. You've got a job that you have to weigh the pros and cons. I know deep down, you know that the rezoning of the property is counterproductive. And I was even informed of the Conservation Authorities Act being strengthened, or I should say, authority taken away by a member of council. So I know that you're talking about this. I know that you're thinking about this. We have an unclear planning department and or council to implement the changes. And what is this supposed to do? In the Milverton meeting, a member of the Perth County, I think it was a CEO, I'm not sure. He said, I hope this passes because it'll make my job easier. We pay for taxes and we pay for the council. And our job as taxpayers is not to make the planning department jobs easier. It's to work with them and make sure that things are fair and equitable. Property devaluation, increased costs for landowners getting an EAS, and land use restrictions are counterproductive to protecting the natural environment and growing our economy. These are more costs, whether it's on the county side or it's on the landowner side, but it's more costs. Perth County is a prime agriculture area. So if you go further south towards Windsor and stuff like that, there's even less tree density in that area. And it goes further, as you go further north, there's more trees. And the reason why we have less trees here is because, guess what? The people clear the land to grow food. That's what we do. So let me see my notes here. Ratepayers that are affected and known about this natural environment rezoning are strongly opposed. Having a new increased size of natural environment zoning will affect property values for property sale purposes. And it's had an opposite effect for protecting the environment for the landowners. I was at all 4 public meetings. People were walking up to me with maps showing their property. Trees that they had planted along a laneway were now going to be designated a natural area. Things that they have planted, such as a walnut tree plantation for the sole purpose of cropping those trees 20 or years later, now changes the zoning of the land so that the landowner can't do other activities. That's basically similar to saying, once you've planted corn, you can never plant anything else. The same argument can be made. So the website frequently asked questions say, you can continue to use your property the way you are. This is not always true. Lisco meeting had a farmer tell us of his impact on his corn production for the purpose of ethanol. So the plant that he sells to, the customer of his, has a ruling that says corn planted within 30 meters of a natural environment are not acceptable. So we have the natural environment, we have 30 meters all around his cornfields that he cannot sell that crop. So we can't say that it's not going to affect what you're going to do. The planning department didn't even know about this. This is news to them. The question and answer period, they had no comments. In response to the mailing, so to go back and say that the planning department sent out information. Well, first of all, thanks to the council, there was a former council member that insisted that the landowners be notified. And I appreciate and I applaud you on actually making the process happen, that this rezoning had to be notified, the landowners. So thank you very much for doing that. But the way that the notification or the website was updated was basically saying that this is a natural environment designation. They didn't say anything about rezoning. All they said, it's important to map out the areas and know exactly what's there for future development. I basically started this whole process because I had a site visit. I was worried about what was going on with my one property. The original, based on satellite images, was going to rezone or redesignate my property 96.4%. So 25 acres, 96% of it was going to be natural environment. This was a property that was built over 50 years. He planted trees, he dug ponds, he made a park-like setting. That's what we bought it for because it's natural environment, but it was all man-made, and this is going to limit or further limit my ability in the future should I want to build a retirement home there. Of course, there's going to be lots of other planning considerations, size of lot, that type of thing, but this is another nail in the coffin as far as what I want to do with my property. So basically, the mailing that went out, or the email that went out, their fact sheet said that 416 landowners contacted the planning department. 246 paper copies of mapping were mailed in response to landowners' requests. 118 property reviews were completed either in person, site visits, or through review of air photos. As you can see, we've had meetings. 275 landowners have signed up for that website that I created, stopperthlandgrab.com. I did it because I was ticked off because my site visit very plainly, by asking a question specifically, told me that my land was going to be rezoned. Rezoning is definitely a huge change than a simple designation. And that's what the planning department said. It's just a designation, it's just a map, it's just so that we know. But the hidden, I shouldn't say that, the in the background process was just to get landowners complacent so that it's going to be a designation, and then they're going to go through and they're going to rezone it. Not fair, misleading. So I started that website. I'd say within 2 weeks, I had 275 people signed up, representing over 500 properties, a lot of farms, but I have 18 farms, 1,800 acres. I created an online petition that people could sign up just by reading the petition and clicking on it. Over 500 people signed up for that. We had a meeting in the Sebringville Community Hall, and we had a lawyer present, and you have a copy of 70 landowners that have notarized their letter of non-consent, having their property rezoned. So you can see that there's strong opposition. So the next plan. I was trying to judge people's opposition to this. And one of my questions would be, are you willing to support a class action lawsuit against this rezoning to stop it or actually look for compensation for property value devaluations? 93% of those 275 people said yes, they were willing. Brought to my attention,
Excuse me, but we allowed you 10 minutes, so we're over that. So can you wrap it up?
I will. So there are decisions out there for the Supreme Court of Canada that have ruled against councils or cities or whatever, municipalities, for constructively expropriation through regulation. That's what this is. Next slide. So negative financial impact. So if you look at the maps, all the land that I have is already controlled by the Grand River Authority. The Grand River Authority protects that area. And what you're doing is, or what you're going to do is rezone the land and change it from AG1 designation to natural environment. So you're going to reduce the actual assessed value of the land, and you're going to be able to collect less taxes. So CFIB is giving you a letter. The extraordinary cost of doing this actual process. So my alternate plan. Do not change the zoning size or designations in the new official plan for any properties that landowners don't specifically agree to. In my case, believe it or not, the rezoning is going to reduce the amount of land that is NRE2 because thickets and everything, metals are coming out. So I might even be more beneficial to have this rezoning happen. And the reason being is that one of the processes that has to change is you cannot notify landowners of a zoning change through a newspaper. Nobody gets newspapers anymore, right? So the land that I bought, there was a certain area that was designated NRA2. The next time I looked at it, a huge amount is NRA2. I wasn't informed, I wasn't asked for any input. Now this came through natural environment assessment. Yeah, they're gonna take thickets and metals and stuff like that. So it's actually gonna reduce the number of the acres that I have of NRA2. So you cannot do, you have to create an amendment to the county bylaws that land can't be rezoned without the person knowing about it. Email, everybody has email. You've got it all on file. So what I'm asking is do exactly what the planning department said it was going to do in the original communication. Natural area designation, not a rezoning. Keep and use the online natural environment mapping as a tool for future planning activities. It can be used as a reference for the county. It can be used as a further proofing of the actual land. Don't waste the money that we spent. Keep the map available, use it as a tool, but don't rezone the land. I've got comments from landowners that I can read to you. Some of them are censored. Other ones talk about the fact that their land evaluation is going to be.
The script, please, because like I said, for 50, I hate to cut you off.
Okay, so our break was supposed to be 2 minutes. It turned into 12 or 15. So give me a break. I appreciate it. So any questions?
Questions from council? Councilor Trinkowski?
Through you, Chair. Request for questions. Back to your slide about comments from the landowners about I'll never plant a tree again.
Yeah, it was terrible. So at I attended all the meetings, and like I said, landowners came up to me with maps and stuff like that. And I've seen it personally, and I know that people were anticipating this happening. So they're clear cutting pastures that have overgrown. They're getting in excavators to pull out stumps so that the tree bylaw officer can't see that they did this. And the number of people that actually did plantations for the purpose of cropping are really, really ticked off because that's what I did because I wanted to have it as a crop. Now it's natural environment. I can't touch it.
True.
So, I mean, they're cutting down trees like crazy, stuff that we don't know about. So this has really gone against the premise of protecting the environment. It's had the opposite effect. Ian?
Okay. So, yeah, through you, Chair. Couple things. Where can I start here? Clear cutting is against the tree fort.
Exactly.
Bylaw. That's one.
But I think it's been happening.
Well, it's not allowed. Two,
Right.
Actually, for every landowner that purports that they will never plant a tree again, I'm the chair of the Agricultural Services Working Group. County has initiated a tree planting program. We've had over 40 applicants so far on the initial run. We have 15 waiting in the wings. So they are planting trees. And the reason why they're planting trees is to conserve and protect the soil. Now, you mentioned about further south. They're clearing the trees. Also, what they're doing is the runoff is going straight into the ditch. The ditches are green, not because there's vegetation, because the nutrients have run off into the ditch. And this was in April, before the cropping season had even begun. You go through Chatham-Kent, the back roads like I did that day. There's a sign that says, "Stop deforestation, Chatham-Kent."
First of all, I don't want to say.
We're not going to get in a debate, I'm sorry.
So I'm challenging, what I'm doing, sir, is I'm challenging what you're.
Okay, so all I did was repeat what other people are saying.
And I'm
not in agreement with what they're saying. I myself used the Maple Leaves Forever, and I planted trees down my laneway. I've got over 40 saplings that I'm gonna plant in this natural area because of the ash trees that have gone. So I'm not saying that you should stop people from protecting the environment. All I'm saying is leave it to the landowners to manage things, be good stewards like they have been, but don't rezone. You don't have to do that. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, other questions, Councillor Aitchison?
Comment, not so much a question. So you keep referring to rezoning. I think what you mean is re-designation all the time. But, and you talk about the mapping. That mapping was not done by Perth County. That was provided by the conservation authorities. And they were changing designations long before this even started, without the property owner having a clue what's going on.
Right.
So, just don't blame Perth County for all of this, because that's not your biggest issue. Trust me. And the third thing was, you talked about trees along laneways and stuff that become part of the forestry bylaw. I don't believe that's corrected by any stretch of the imagination, because I planted a pile of maple trees. Now we're planting oak and other trees, because apparently there's a virus coming up out of the US that might take all your maple trees out. So we're trying to plant oak and a bunch of stuff now.
What I understand is, yes, the designation has been happening through heritage reports, whatever. The issue is that now we're gonna take that designation, which is just for mapping and notification, and changing the zoning on your land from AG1 or NRE2 in the case would be as a natural environment equivalent. So you're gonna take 10,000 acres that are AG1 and change them to natural environment. That's all I'm talking about, is rezoning. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's the process. It was originally 10,000, you've probably done remapping, and I would assume that number has come down. That's what I heard.
Okay, other questions? Seeing none, then we have a motion that council receives a delegation, item 8.2.1, Perth County Official Plan Update from Chris Ratter. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor Smith. In favor? Carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. The official plan is on our meeting later this morning, so you're welcome to stay for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on now to our staff reports, and our first staff report is a Here in Perth Public Health Cost Apportionment Renewal Agreement. Lori's going to do that, so Lori, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Through the warden to County Council, the next two reports that I have are the HPPH and the Spruce Lodge. These are the first two cost allocation agreements out of 6 this year that are coming forward for the 4-year renewal. These are housekeeping reports. They have to be renewed. And I'm very, very pleased to seek council's approval today on these agreements because it will take care of these for the next 4 years. They reflect very little change from the current agreements. For example, there are some legislative references, obviously the dates to reflect the new terms. The documents have received legal review. All parties recommend approval with the agreements being circulated through the respective councils for approval. Huron County has already approved the HPPH agreement, so I've adjusted the resolution that's in your report slightly so that we have consistency with the resolutions.
Okay, any questions on the report? If not, we have a motion that council receives the report titled Huron Perth Public Health Cost Apportionment Renewal Agreement, and that council approves entering in a Huron Perth Public Health Cost Apportionment Agreement with the County of Huron, City of Stratford, Town of St. Mary's, effective January 1, 2025 for a period of 4 years, and that the warden and the clerk are authorized to execute the Huron Perth Public Health Cost Apportionment Agreement with the County of Huron, City of Stratford, and Town of St. Mary's. Moved by Councillor Castleberg, second by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and the next one is the Spruce Lodge Agreement.
Yes, thank you through the warden. Same comments with regard to the Spruce Lodge agreement.
Okay, any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council receives the report entitled Spruce Lodge Long-Term Care Cost Apportionment Renewal Agreement, and that council approves entering into a Spruce Lodge Long-Term Care Cost Apportionment Agreement with the County of Huron, City of Stratford, Town of St. Mary's, effective January 1, 2025 for a period of 4 years, and that the warden and the clerk are authorized to execute the Spruce Lodge Long-Term Cost Apportionment Agreement with the County of Huron, City of Stratford, and the Town of St. Mary's. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Now we're going to move to planning services, and the first item is our Perth County official plan update. Laura with us, and Andrea. Jeff, I don't know if you're gonna come to the table too, or let's sit at the front. No, I'm blind.
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay, welcome, ladies, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Warden and members of council. Today, I'm here to present to you the Perth County official plan update of June 2024. My name is Moira Davidson. I'm a senior policy planner with Perth County, and I'll be running you through the changes we've made to the official plan as a result of consultation we heard in the winter and spring of 2024, as well as running through a interactive official mapping online mapping system that our GIS department has kindly created for constituents of the county to be able to use and operate and be able to see their land use designations. Next slide. So just a quick summary of what we will be discussing today. There's going to be a project summary as well as a planning authority hierarchy recap to have an understanding of where the official plan fits into the Ontario planning hierarchy. Project timeline of where we are to date. There'll be information on public engagement we received to date, as well as a summary of what we've heard and the changes that we made as a result. There will be a summary on the natural environment designation review, as well as a summary on the Perth County web map, as I previously mentioned. And then we'll briefly discuss the recommended consultation and communication strategy, and then go into next steps and key dates. Next slide. So this project, the county official plan, began in July of 2018 when we initiated a contract with the consultant WSP to undertake a review of our, undertake a 5-year review of our official plan. The county is undertaking this because the existing official plan is currently 25 years old and it is not consistent with current planning legislation at this time. The objective of the official plan review is to ensure consistency and conformity of our existing official plan with provincial policy, including the provincial policy statement, as well as to address local priorities and changes in community needs within Perth County. The updated official plan will also reduce the requirement for official plan amendments, as the policies that are oftentimes amended in the official plan will now be as of right, and it will further reduce red tape for development. Next slide. So before I get into the comments that we heard, as well as the changes that we made, I wanted to provide a quick summary on how the official plan fits into the planning authority hierarchy in the province of Ontario. So at a very high level, we have the Planning Act, and this sets out the rules for land use planning in Ontario. It also dictates how land uses may be controlled and who those and who may control them. The provincial policy statement comes directly below the Planning Act. It sets out the direction on matters of provincial interest. It's a key part in the Ontario planning-led planning system. And the provincial policy statement establishes the policy foundation for regulating land use and development. And then we move into the county official plan, which is what we are currently looking to review, or are currently undergoing review. And the official plan is the most important vehicle for implementation of the PPS. And the current age of our existing county official plan is limiting this implementation. The official plan provides high-level, long-term land use policies that guide future planning and development to meet specific needs of the county, of the community, and this is based on surrounding uses, provincial interests, and also anticipated growth. And then finally, as we get to a more site-specific basis, we have the zoning bylaw. And the zoning bylaw is the tool that implements the policies of the official plan. So zoning is undertaken on a site-by-site basis. It's through direct land use controls, and it also provides a legal and precise way of managing land and future development. It should be noted that the existing zoning bylaws within the county are also outdated and will need to be reviewed following the adoption of this official plan, but that is something that will need to be done in the future. Next slide. So on the screen, you'll see a brief project timeline. We're currently in between phase 4 and 5. We did preliminary public outreach as part of phase 1. As part of phase 2, we undertook various background reports, such as the comprehensive review that determined what growth we are anticipating, as well as a natural heritage study to look at the natural heritage system that exists, or natural environment system, excuse me, that exists in the county. We initially posted a first version of the official plan in the winter of 2023 and held consultation in the spring of 2024. And through the feedback we received from the county, from council, from staff, from public, we have now brought back a revised official plan to you today to review. Next slide. So the public engagement that we have received throughout this entire process has been very valuable in getting us to the point where we are today. It wouldn't be possible, and this official plan review wouldn't be possible without that valuable input from residents and landowners. And we're very thankful for everyone who has been able to engage with us and continues to engage with us on this project to date. So thus far, we have held 8 open houses throughout the entirety of the project, as well as 6 separate public meetings. In our latest round of consultation that happened in the spring of 2024, we received 58 public comments through either mail or in person, or email or call, or phone, excuse me, and those were received during or immediately following the February 2024 open houses. Next slide. So before we get into the specific feedback that we heard, there were some frequently asked questions that we also have been able to create in order to help both the public kind of better understand what some of the feedback we've heard and what the policies of the official plan are anticipating to implement. And this slide quickly summarizes a few of the frequently asked questions we've received, but there is an entire frequently asked questions page that we also have been able to create as a result of the feedback we've heard, just to further answer some of those questions. So the first question I just wanted to clarify and provide some clarification on is what's the difference between an official planning designation and zoning? So as I previously iterated in that planning hierarchy slide, an official plan designation is a high level land use category, whereas a zoning is site specific, and it provides that direct land use control regarding setbacks or lot sizing, for example. The next question that is quite common we heard about was how the natural environment designation affects the ability to use land for agriculture. And there's nothing in the current official plan that limits the continuation of agricultural uses within or adjacent to the natural environment designation. And another question was who completed the natural resources environmental mapping for the current official plan. And this mapping that is used in the existing 1909 official plan is based on mapping created in 1985 of wetlands and woodlands created by the MNRF as well as the conservation authorities. The existing or current natural environment mapping that is proposed in this new official plan, it was undertaken by Upper Thames Conservation Authority through the natural heritage study that was undertaken, and this was undertaken in 2015, but then was further updated in 2019, and the current designations use 2020 aerial images as well as 2022 site visits to get the fulsome proposed designation that you see in front of you today. And the concern of whether or not you can develop within the proposed natural environment designation, it's not a limiting factor. It means that an EIS may be required when development applications are proposed under the Planning Act. So it's not for current uses, it's for if any type of Planning Act application is wanting to be submitted. And then finally, the clearing of trees on the property. The official plan is not the method in which tree clearing is managed. This is done through the county's forestry conservation bylaw. And so regardless of official plan designation, the forestry conservation bylaw states that all woodlots over half a hectare are subject to the forestry conservation bylaw. Next slide. So now we'll go into the details of what changes we've made as a result of the feedback that we've heard. So we did receive 58 comments from members of the public, from stakeholders, as well as commenting agencies. And this helps to guide us on what changes were made to the official plan, to the revised official plan that you see in front of you. The common themes surrounding the comments and the common changes that were made are a result of the following themes being provincial policy alignment, agricultural clarity on how to use the official plan, how to read the official plan, growth management, natural environment, on-farm diversified uses, and then site-specific property questions. So we also did reach out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. They did receive a copy of the previous official plan shared in the spring of 2024. And they provided 14 minor comments, mostly related to ensuring that definitions we had within the official plan were in alignment with different policy statements, or that the reference of ministries within the official plan are accurate. But overall, they were quite pleased with the progression we have made, and they complimented us on the policy direction that we are going with this official plan. One thing I did want to clarify is that no changes were made in this iteration of the official plan as a result of proposed legislation. This was in consultation with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as well as our consultant WSP. And we were advised at the time that we can only plan for the policies that are currently in front of us. And as such, we were directed to keep using the existing legislation that is currently enacted. And should any new legislation be adopted during the future process of this plan, we would make amendments to the plan at that time to address those changes. Next slide. So bear with me. This is the table that shows all the changes that were made to the official plan. The first changes relate to provincial and federal policy and how we were aligning our official plan with existing legislation coming from the province. So starting with the Planning Act, some policy modifications were made to align our official plan with permissions of the Planning Act regarding Planning Act applications. And this is just regarding some of the changes that have come out recently about different permissions of what can be required as part of applications. And on the far side of the chart, and I believe it is also in your packages, you'll see a direct section reference where you can find the direct changes there. Regarding the changes made as a result of alignment with Provincial Policy Statement 2020, so various definitions were either changed, slightly modified, or added to ensure that the terminology we use in the official plan is in alignment with the terminology and definitions of the PPS. The changes made as a result of the Conservation Authorities Act resulted in was a result of the changes that the conservation authorities provided us, as well as changes that the MMAH had recommended. And this is regarding the development, buildings and structures permissions within natural hazards as a recent change to the Conservation Authorities Act. You can see the sections there as well. For the Heritage Act, policy modifications were made to align land use permissions with the Heritage Act. Guidelines for new development in proximity to railway operations. We made slight changes to ensure that sensitive uses were removed or protected from railway operations, and then also just aligned definitions. And then finally, the Aggregate Resources Act, we just ensured that the policies align with the protection of aggregate resources as per the Aggregate Resources Act. Next slide. The following theme of agricultural had three main changes. The first one being a question or comment made about MDS within the settlement area. We did confirm with the ministry that MDS setbacks are not required for new development within expanded settlement areas. This is per OMAFRA's MDS guidelines, and then the lands within the settlement areas are going to be redesignated for settlement area land use permissions. There was a question about the non-inclusion of rural land policy within our official plan. So rural lands as defined in the PPS do not exist in Perth County as they relate to CLI designations. And as such, these lands are not contemplated or recognized in our existing or proposed official plan. Finally, there was an additional section added to recognize the expansion for legacy commercial and industrial uses. Within the agricultural designation, it was recognized that these sites have potential to be either brownfield, they have already been developed, they are unlikely to be reverted back to agricultural lands. In order to continue these existing uses, albeit few, there were policies put in there to permit the continuation of those uses. Next slide. The following slide details the clarity changes that were made. And just a quick summary of it. changes were made to definitions that were required to align with provincial policy. There was also changes to the interpretation of the plan, which would further assist with the reader's understanding of when policies are mandatory versus when they are a consideration. The changes were made as a result of ministry consultation that specific references to ministries were removed. This was as a result of the kind of continuous changing of naming of ministries within the province. And in order for us to reduce the requirement for amendments to the official plan as a result of those ministry name changes, we've just simplified it and referred to it as the ministry throughout. The formatting was also changed. It just improved the readability as to what underlined terms mean and what italicized terms mean as their definitions and where to refer to if you would like to see those definitions. And then finally, the inclusion of previous site-specific official plan amendments within this version of the official plan. And then rather than bringing over each site-specific amendment, the text of the official plan has been revitalized, that those site-specific amendments are now permitted as of right. So they weren't brought over for that reason. Next slide. So as a result of the public comments we received on growth management, the following changes were made. We heard from public health that they would like to place more emphasis on the creation of safe, active, and walkable communities. So text changes were made and small additions were made to appease and consider these suggestions. Urban fringe designation, so revisions were made to prohibit lot creation, as this urban fringe designation is an existing one and is not something that the new official plan is looking to expand or promote. So those changes were made there. The clarity on density requirements versus targets within the settlement area. So there have been modifications made to clarify that there's definitions within the low density, medium density, and high density housing. And it's not that they are technically targets per se, but they are more forecast based on existing markets as a result of the comprehensive review. The next kind of comments are related to growth focus and the request for the majority of density to be located within higher density types of development. So the previous version of the official plan, as well as the version released in fall 2023, in winter 2023, it placed emphasis on this, but we went through and provided modifications to place greater emphasis on these policies to require and clarify that service settlement areas should be the focus of growth, and that higher density development should be, and intensification should be where we're looking to develop new development. Candidate lands policy was changed to further emphasize protection of existing lands within this designation, and the clarification that the existing lands that have been identified in settlement areas and allocated to those settlement areas is expected to meet the needs to 2024, and only at such time that need is no longer being met would those candidate lands be considered. And finally, there was a clarification to the policy required as a result of the Oxford official plan, which states that, or which prohibits, that the extension of services from Tavistock is to be prohibited. And we've just aligned our official plan to meet that requirement of the Oxford official plan. Next slide. Regarding natural environment, so there was a request to restore the current definition of woodlot, and the natural environment mapping includes woodlots that are 1 hectare or larger. That was as a result of the natural heritage study that was undertaken. There was also requests for new policy that guarantees a threshold for mapping, and that it won't be further reduced. And the policies that we have in the official plan, as well as the policies that are proposed in the official plan in front of you, they are in alignment with the provincial policy statement, and they continue to apply until such time that they are amended or appealed through provincial policy change. the county is required to review the official plan every 5 years. So if there should be a update to provincial policy during that time, that is where a housekeeping amendment would be made to amend the definitions or considerations and ensure we are in continued alignment with provincial policy. And we're not recommending a policy effect change this time, at this time. So regarding the maintenance of current natural environment policies, as previously stated, the existing official plan is 25 years old, meaning that the policies within, including the natural environment policies, are also 25 years old, and they are not consistent with current planning legislation nor best practices, and as such, they cannot be maintained. There was modifications made to the natural environment policy section to better kind of preface and clarify the permissions within the natural environment policies, including that they do not apply to existing agricultural uses or recreational uses, and the requirement for an EIS is only required through a implemented Planning Act application. There was changes made to a section regarding greenhouse gas reduction, as it was recognized that not all member municipalities have adopted a greenhouse gas reduction plan. So policy has been amended to better reflect that. Additional policy was also added to clarify when an EIS is triggered. And then finally, there was a mapping overlap that had sewage lagoons considered as water bodies. So we've gone through it and made that change so they aren't considered water bodies now. Next slide. We have on-farm diversified uses as well as passive recreation clarity. We made some changes to modify the definitions and policies so that clarity was provided on where on-farm diversified uses can be located. And then finally, there was a change made to the definition of passive recreation to further clarify what those uses are, as well as that they don't require development of specific facilities to be included. Next slide. We also received quite a few comments that were site-specific in nature. These comments related to aggregates, natural environment, settlement area boundaries, and then growth allocation. So staff did review each site-specific request and made changes to the policy or the mapping where provincial policy permitted us to do so. We also received many comments regarding site-specific permissions and regulations of land, such as lot sizes or setbacks. And then we, in taking a review of those, determined that those would be better suited for a zoning bylaw. So we have considered those comments, we have tracked those comments, and we would be considering them in the future plan reviews of the subsequent zoning bylaws. Next slide. So to briefly provide a additional summary of the natural environment designated lands that we're currently proposing, as well as a review of the existing 1999 official plan natural environment policies. So as previously stated, the existing 1999 official plan utilizes baseline mapping created in the mid-80s, in the mid-1980s, while the existing draft official plan that you have in front of you utilizes information from 2019 and aerial imagery from 2020. So looking at the current official plan and comparing it to the natural environment policies within the draft official plan, we're looking at an approximate increase of 4,400 acres. And our GIS team did do a review of this area, confirming where the lands have been added. And they confirmed that the majority of additions within the natural environment designation did comprise of small areas across the entirety of the county. And these represent 0.8% of the total land area of the county. So as a result of why the changes occurred, we can see physical landscape changes. There also has been 25 plus years of forest succession since the last official plan, closer to 30 or 35 years if you're considering the baseline mapping that was used for the official plan. There's also been changes to mapping standards and technology since the creation of the official plan, as well as the mapping that was undertaken in 1985, and then the accuracy and precision that we now have to date It has improved and allows us to create more accurate mapping that was able to be created in 1985. Next slide. So as a result of public feedback, council also directed staff to prepare and release a draft plan official map viewer. So we have moved forward with the creation of this, and on the next slide, you'll see a demonstration of this. But the viewer allows property owners to find their specific property. It allows users to zoom in on their property for more detail, as well as explore the draft and official plan designations, as well as compare them to the previous official plan designations. And it is going to be made available up until the public meeting in fall 2024. If we go to the next slide, there is a video from our GIS team describing in detail on how to use the viewer.
So just before we get to that, any questions on what she's already covered? You, or Councilor McDermott?
On the Hamlet Grove Sebastopol, what is it that we actually changed? Like why are we, like Oxford has their official plan, which is fine. Like why are we changing anything on our official plan?
So through the warden, the Sebastopol is provided water services through the County of Oxford. And the County of Oxford has specific policies in there that limit that, that provision, that say that essentially future services should not be extended. And because they are in agreement with and provide that service to Sebastopol, we have to ensure that we are in alignment with that as well. And that in alignment with the official plan, we've just stated that we are in agreement that services will not be extended to Sebastopol from.
Yeah, basically it's just saying they're not going to extend services, so we know that they're not going to extend services. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Councilor Orr.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really good. Just curious, there was a comment there about 58 comments and agencies. Is there any chance that we can have a list of the agencies that have commented? Only because I'm looking for some key people here, like the OFA, the Perth County Federation of Agriculture. I just want to make sure that we have given everybody the opportunity, as a group, some of them, to have their input. So I wondered if that is possible, to have a list of who has commented, and if not, we can try to target a few more.
So through the word, we do have an internal list of through our commenting tracking matrix, we do have a list of who has commented to date. I'm not sure what the appropriate format would be, but I think we can definitely share that with council following this meeting.
I just want to make sure that they have commented.
Okay, any other questions? If not, then, sorry, Councilor Tronkowski.
Yeah, through you, Warden. Yeah, thanks to staff for excellent presentation. I know it takes a lot of work to prepare this and put it together and communicate it. My question specifically dealing with the forestry bylaw, like the size of a woodlot, has that been changed, or are we maintaining the status quo at this point according to the current bylaw?
Through the warden, we're not looking at changing the bylaw at this time. It's not something that would be included in the official plan review process. So that's something that would need to be undertaken separately.
Okay, so it's status quo then. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Nope, okay, proceed.
Welcome to a brief demonstration of the map viewer for the draft official plan. I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through how this tool works. To enter the map viewer, click on the Explore button at the bottom of the page. Please read and agree to the terms and conditions stated in the disclaimer screen. Press OK to enter the site. Info panel is automatically open on the right-hand side of the screen. A quick overview of the draft official plan is provided here. Written instructions are also provided under the heading Map Tips. If you scroll down, contact information is located at the bottom. To open or close, click on the Info button. The legend is also automatically open in the bottom left corner of the screen. The draft official plan's proposed land use designations will be loaded on startup depending on your network speed. To open or close, click on the legend button. You can zoom in and out using the plus and minus buttons on the top left side of the screen. As you zoom in, more layers will become available to view. You can also explore an area by holding and dragging your cursor within the map area. It will take a few moments for the layers to view as you zoom in. To view the available layers, open the Map Layers panel at the top right side. The Draft Official Plans Settlement Area Boundary is available at the top, and you can click it on and off. Expand the official plan layers by clicking on the chevron symbol. From here, you can toggle between the draft and the current official plans. To increase transparency of the layers, click on the ellipsis and select Increase Transparency. And you can also reset it to the original by decreasing the transparency. You can use the preset bookmarks button at the bottom left side of the screen to zoom directly to Listowel, Atwood, Milverton, Mitchell, and Shakespeare. It will take a few moments for the map to load once selected. Click on the legend to view the proposed land use designations, or once loaded, click on the map and a pop-up will appear that shows you the proposed land use designation. To reset the map, press the home button at the top left side of the screen. Use the search bar at the top of the screen to search for your property. You can search using a municipal address, a 15-digit assessment roll number or a parcel number, or your lot, con, and ward. I will demonstrate using a municipal 911 address. Start typing your address, and options will appear in the drop-down window. Press Enter on your keyboard or click on the drop-down option. You will zoom directly to your address point. Once zoomed, it will take a few moments for the map to load. Close the pop-up and close out of your search session to see the proposed land use designations. From here, you can pan around your property, and you can also toggle between the draft and the current official plan. If you want to save a PDF document of your property, open the print widget in the bottom left corner of the screen, press print, and the current map extent will print to a PDF document in the results tab. Once generated, the PDF will open in a new tab and you can save it to your local computer or print. A more detailed video and written instructions will be available on the Perth County website once the map viewer goes live. Thank you.
Next slide. The map viewer is just one tool that we have proposed to include in this next round of communication strategy and tactics. And this slide kind of details what exactly we are proposing at this time for council's approval. So we're looking to publish the map viewer and the official plan text online. We're also looking to have a video update through the project website and county YouTube. We're looking to do some regular media releases through news releases, project website, and social media to get the word out about this new revised official plan document, as well as the map viewer. We will also be sharing posters to the member municipalities, as well as throughout various businesses to allow for passive information to be distributed about the revised official plan. We also have proposed a promotional postcard mail out to all businesses, farms, homes, and apartments within the county. This includes approximately 23,000 addresses. This would be additional to the approved 2024 budget. And this is something that you'll see in the report requesting an additional budget for this purpose. We also are proposing in-person open houses as well as policy planner office hours. And then finally, the next steps include a statutory public meeting and a council meeting. On the next slide, I'll go into detail on the in-person open house and office hours. We're proposing to have a one-day open house held one in the morning and one in the evening. So there's 2 open houses held on one day. One open house will be located in the northern part of the county and one will be located in the southern part of the county, and we're proposing that it be 2 hours in length. We are proposing that it was attended by all members of council as well as planning staff to allow the public to have their questions answered. The format we're proposing is a brief summary presentation and then stations which would be distributed across or around the room and distributed by local municipality. And this would allow for attendees to ask questions of their local municipal members, municipal staff, of their local council members, and then also ask questions and provide feedback. There also would be the ability to view the GIS viewer for anyone who's having or has had issues viewing the viewer online themselves. And then a continuous slideshow update of the official plan and what's been changed to date would show and play throughout the open house. For those who are unable to attend the open houses or for the requirement of site-specific discussions, we would be hosting policy planner office hours the same week as the open house. 1 week of office hours and then 1 day per local municipality. Approximately 15 to 30 minutes per office hour booking, and it would be allowed that the individuals can come in and talk to us about specific sites as it relates to the revised official plan policies, and bookings can be made through email or phone. Next slide. So we're just finalizing and wrapping up what next steps and key dates we're looking at. So we're presenting the revised draft of the official plan and the map viewer to you today, and we are looking for your recommendation to roll out the next steps, proposed communications, proposed open houses, as we can move forward towards adoption of the official plan in fall 2024. We'd be looking at a rollout of communications. So this would be the GIS viewer, official plan publication, media blasts, and postcard mailouts immediately following council today. We'd be hosting an open house on July 22nd, again, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. Revisions to the official plan would then be undertaken following the open house up until August 30th. Now, while comments can be received up to the day that council chooses to adopt the official plan, we would recommend that comments be received by August 30th, as that just gives staff enough time to appropriately consider all the comments and feedback we receive and make amendments to the official plan as required. The final official plan would be posted for publication on September 13th, and that's also when the notice of statutory public meeting would be issued, as well as council adoption would be issued in alignment with the requirements of the Planning Act. And then on October 3rd is when we would be looking to host the statutory public meeting, as well as recommended to bring the official plan to council for adoption. And should that be successful and following council adoption, whenever it may be, the plan does still need to go to the ministry for final minister approval. And that would happen immediately following council adoption. Here it is indicated as October 3rd if that proceeds as planned. Thanks. So that concludes everything that we have for the summary. I'm here to answer any questions you have regarding this policy, as well as we have some members of our GIS team who would be happy to answer any technical questions if you do have any on that regard.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Councilor McDermott?
Just when does the map go up? Is it today?
Through the warden, if you approve the proposed plan that we have in front of you, the map would go up today for public viewing.
Just want to make sure.
Okay, Councilor Aitchison?
Follow up to that question. So we're sending out the postcards.
We have to decide that today if
Well,
we
I'm hoping
want
we
to do
do
that.
this. If you're sending it to all landowners, there, a lot of them aren't having any idea how to view the maps. Unless you have something on the postcard. Trust me.
So through the warden, we have not just the postcards, but there is going to be a tutorial on the website. That same tutorial that you saw is going to be posted to the website as well. Before you view the map, there is also a list of instructions that brings you to what we call a splash page. It details how to use the viewer, what the purpose of the viewer is. The postcard is just one tool that we're using to inform the public. There's also going to be news releases undertaken to inform them that there is this map viewer, as well as various postings on social media. And the news release will go to the media sources as well, who will likely or provide comments and more information on how to use these resources.
As long as they know it's there.
Okay, other questions? So the postcards, and that's something we need to decide now, to print and mail is going to be $8,838.06. So I guess council needs to give direction, yes or no, to McDermott.
I would move to spend the money.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councilor Trinkowski,
Yes.
plus all the other additional promotional things as well, okay? Anyone have comments or questions on that? Councilor Kassenberg?
Just as a point of procedure, isn't there a broader motion for?
And whether there's a motion that it doesn't specifically say to that, and I just want to make sure that, I guess, that we're covered, right? So,
In terms of sequencing, shouldn't we approve the first motion or consider the first motion before the second?
Do you want to include that into this motion
well, we could.
as one?
Yeah.
And that way it captures it all, would probably be procedurally a little bit cleaner.
Okay.
If we do, add the
Okay.
cost assessment into that.
All right, we'll add it to it. I am freezing. I can see everybody else. I know. Who can turn up the heat?
I will get on it.
Sorry. Okay, any more? We'll just hold that for a second. Councilor McKenzie?
I don't think we have really a lot of options when it comes to postcards. Like, there really is no other way of informing people of Perth County, because as was said earlier, so few people get a newspaper now. You can put an ad in there, but you're not going to get the coverage that you would have 10 or 15 years ago. So I think mailing is the only way, and a good number of senior people in the county don't have a computer. So you got to keep that in mind too. So this is, at least with a postcard, you can inform them. They can always go to the library if they want to have a look, and somebody will help them there to get on. I don't think we have a lot of options here, really.
They can go to municipal office.
Or there, yeah, no, that's true, yeah.
Okay, Councilor Orr?
Just one point of clarity, because Councilor Trankowski asked about the tree bylaw. The trees are all under legislative services, right? So we're not really bringing that into the official plan for your, can I clarify that?
Through the warden, that's correct.
Right, so the trees are with legislative services, not the official.
Right, but the tree bylaw is going to be reviewed.
Yes.
Yes.
But not in this.
Not in this.
Right.
Not in the open.
I just want that clarified.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Councilor
through you,
Trinkowski?
Warden, I only asked the question because we do reference the tree bylaw in the official plan. So I just wanted to be clear in my own mind how that plays out. Thank you.
Okay, other questions about what's, anything in general, the timelines, the, how we're gonna let the public know, the mapping? Everybody's good with what's gonna come down the pipe, so Councilor McDermott?
So when we do that July the 22nd day, those two meetings, all of council are to be at both of those meetings?
If they can.
Okay.
It's understandable, some of you have jobs, but we kind of like everybody there.
Yep.
They've asked at these public meetings who the council members are, and I know Councilor Trinkowski and Orr and I made sure, and I know the other ones came at their own places, but this time we'd like everyone to come if they could. And
No, that's fine. I'd make arrangements and stuff like that. I just wanted to be
Well,
sure.
we'd like
that
everybody there.
You would like everybody there.
Andrew, you'd like to say something? Go ahead. Sorry.
As a point of clarification, we couldn't have we'll have to coordinate between the two meetings because we can't have all of council in a single space, is my understanding. Otherwise, it's a council meeting.
Constitutes quorum.
Yeah.
Tyler, maybe you could help us with that.
Yes, so through the warden, in the municipal act, through the procedural bylaw, members can't discuss or otherwise deal with any matter that materially advances the business. So with that being said, this could be seen more as an information session, which would not necessarily constitute as a formal meeting under the municipal act. So my recommendation is that if council did show up, even though it is just materially not advancing any material and it's just for information purposes, because it is also open to the public at that time, that it wouldn't constitute as a meeting.
Councilor Kasselberg?
Just sort of vague discomfort with not materially advancing, because certainly the public's purpose in coming into the meeting is to learn about these things, and they will have exposure to both staff and councillors who are present, in which they may make recommendations or give advice. So I'm a little torn on your answer, if I might say that, Clerk Sager.
Yeah. If I may?
Go ahead.
So through the warden, I think that any information that is received would also be privy to council at the council meeting where you'd be making a decision. So I think that anything that is discussed during the open house session, that public comment would also then come forward at a council meeting for decision.
So I got a quick question. I just got a text. Is one day going to be enough? Because we have some property owners that could come in and tie up your planner, and they could tie them up for quite a while because of the number of properties they own. And you're talking splitting the county in two.
But we're gonna have all the planners there. It's not just going to
So
be,
you honestly think that 2 hours in one spot's gonna be enough? Just asking the question.
So through the wording, we are hoping to tailor our communications around the open houses so that it focuses on the plan as a whole, whereas site-specific questions, if someone does own multiple properties and they want to discuss them all in detail, that's where the in-person office hours for the policy planners would come into play. And we'd recommend that that constituent or that member of the public who does want to speak at length on multiple properties or requires more time to speak on their properties would do so in that setting. And we would further kind of clarify that the open house is not for that purpose. As mentioned by the warden, there would be multiple planners there, but we would try and direct those site-specific questions to those in-person office hours.
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, just through the warden, one point of maybe clarification as well to Councilor Casenbrook's point. While attending the open house, again, I don't think the anticipation is that council would be having discussion. It'd be more of an information and receiving. So I think that kind of provides a little bit more clarity. I can understand the discomfort. Again, that would be my interpretation of the procedure bylaw municipal act. Yeah, just keep it very concise, understanding that it's not discussion purposes, it's information for council's perspective.
Okay, anything else?
I'll send an
Bring
email.
us a snowsuit next week. That council received the Perth County Official Plan Update Report. That council directs staff to release the interactive Perth County web map for public use, and that council directs staff to proceed with circulation of a public consultation for the revised draft county Perth official plan.
Through the warden, approving the $8,838.06 associated cost. That was moved by Councilor McDermott, seconded by Councilor Trenkowski. We're okay with that?
So that's an amendment to the current motion, is that what you're saying?
We're gonna just add it all.
Make it part of it.
Add it into the
So
ideas.
then we'll scrap what was on the floor.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll do all the other advertising as well, not just that. Being that one is a dollar figure, that I wanted that in here so that somebody can't come back in 3 weeks and say, oh, you didn't really move that. So,
Well, I agree with Councilman McKenzie, that isn't an option.
no. So Councilor McDermott moved it and
Councilor Trenkowski seconded.
seconded. So you'll do the whole motion, right? Not just that part, everything, okay? Any more comments or questions on all of that, what I read and what Tyler added? All in favor? Carried. Okay, is that, you're well on your way? Perfect. Okay, so we are going to move to decision of council for OPA 225 Carey Homes. And Andrea, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not going to give any sort of presentation, just give council a quick overview. So basically, council made a decision at the June 6th meeting relating to OPA 225, which was associated with the application for Carey Homes, which was a townhouse development proposal. And so council made a decision to not approve the official plan amendment. However, under the Planning Act, we need council to provide a decision when they don't approve an application. And so simply, let's just, to move forward, we have a statutory requirement that we issue the decision within 15 days. So tomorrow actually is day 15. So we're in good time here, but just simply asking council to provide us with a decision as to why the application was turned down.
Okay, Councillor Orr?
Just curious, so I did vote in favor of it. I'm wondering if there's any way that we can track the cost, because I have a feeling that the applicant's going to try to come back on us. And I'm wondering if overall we could track what this is going to cost us financially.
Okay, Councillor Kassenberg?
I'm not sure that that's a regular request at this point, because we can't fully anticipate the future steps of the proponent, if I'm understanding your question. You know, it's certainly within the realm, if you ask me, of a proponent, to appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and at that point, costs will become more relevant, but I'm not sure that we can forecast that at this point. Am I right? Like, it would be difficult to forecast costs moving forward from this point forward.
So through the warden to the question, just for my understanding, so Councillor Orr, you're asking what would be the cost in the event of an appeal? Is that?
Yes, I guess I've never been a part of something like this, so I'm curious as to what could be potentially the cost, and you're right, it might not be appealed, but it may be appealed. And if we could, in fact, track the costs, just so that in the future, we are aware of, it comes back on us, what the financial implications are. I'm just wondering if you could track that.
So with the board hearings, generally what happens is they would review the appeal, and they would respond back saying whether they would ask us and opposing counsel how many days we thought the appeal would take. And so generally I've seen 1 to 3 days. I've also seen 3 weeks, that kind of thing. And so I'm not quite sure how long they would schedule it for, but if we could give council a cost estimate per day, approximately how much it costs for a lawyer per day. And then in this case, because the planning department supported or recommended approval of the application, council would, if council chose to represent at the hearing, council would have to hire their own planner as well. So we could provide council with a ballpark.
I guess I don't need a ballpark. At the end of this, I would like to know what it cost. I'd like to track the expenses that happen, just so that I know going forward when I say no to something, what that financial implication.
That's okay. Councillor Smith?
So just for clarification, you're asking for council's reasons for denying, voting against. So in the report that came out on the 6th, that we have fire concerns, the density, parking, the sight lines on Walton Street Ave, rather, again, fire access and the impact on the neighbors, those are all the reasons that we discussed at that meeting. So you're looking for something formally to say those are our reasons.
Through the warden to the question, yes. So the Planning Act requires that council provides a reason for the decision. And in the event of an appeal, then the board member would ask, what's the reason for the decision?
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kassenberg.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think you've enumerated a number of the things on the table. Some of them actually conflict with each other, which is mildly interesting. And I'll put on the table as well, affordability and attainability was certainly the issue that I had with that proposition. So I'll add that to the mix. But I would take the notes that Councillor Smith just read into the record and use those as the basis for our resolution, expressing why we have denied that application.
Councillor McKenzie.
So of those reasons that Jerry just read, how many of them are legitimate OPA decisions? Because some of that is site plan, some of it is zoning. How many of those are actually OPA legitimate things you could hang your hat on?
Through the warden to the question, it's, I'm happy to respond to any questions. However, I can't direct council on what their reason would be. It would have to be, I mean, I can definitely say that I noticed that there were differing opinions, obviously, as to why, some voted in favor and some voted against. So I think as a group, you would have to determine what the reasons are. And yet definitely it would likely carry more weight if they were official plan amendment related. In terms of.
And that's my question. Okay, so what of those are official plan related? Solely. Because the others are addressed, some of them are addressed through zoning and some are addressed through site plan. So if we are going to go to the Ontario Tribunal, we have to make sure that our T's are crossed and I's are dotted and that we're going for the right reasons.
I don't think we're going to have a choice. We're going to have to go. If it's appealed, we're going to have to go. So, but we need to come up with why.
But you have to,
Yeah.
you got to have legitimate.
Oh, I get that. I get that. And Councillor Orr had asked Planner Bice that day if planning had looked at, what were the wording that you used, to make sure that our official plan met all the requirements that it needed to meet, and Mr. Bice said yes, and I reiterated that we were changing the zoning of the property and the property only, not what was going on the site, not what was going to come down the road, only what the land designation from agricultural to residential. That was my understanding. Councilor?
If I might, and maybe this is not exactly what council needs to sort of understand in this, but for me, opting to deny at the official plan amendment stage is going to save the proponent the headaches that come at the zoning bylaw stage in North Perth when they seek a zoning bylaw amendment and are frustrated on that score, because I think North Perth Council was very clear that it would not entertain that next step. So might as well get it on the table and dealt with at an earlier stage of the process so that there's not frustration somewhat later. That may not be a valid explanation or reason, but that is highly likely what would happen.
Through the warden, so I think what council needs to do here is simply state those who voted in opposition to it, which created the failure of the motion at the last meeting, just whether they're valid in law or not, the board will decide that. You had reasons why you voted against it, regardless of what, the validity of those reasons are not. You need to know those reasons, just point form. That will form part of your resolution, and then that's what gets sent to the board. And then if it is appealed, they will decide whether that's legitimate or valid or not.
Mr. Jankowski?
Through you, Warden, I would offer or suggest that part of the wording in our reasons as such insufficient density of the proposal. Insufficient density provided in the proposal with no demonstrated ability to increase future density via as of right accessory dwelling options to cover the density part of the reasoning. That would be my offer to this council for their consideration.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, and I would really like to see the concerns of the fire department. They're listed in, if you want the words, they're in the report under the North Perth Fire Department concerns. You can condense it, but highlight no turnaround, less than ideal for firefighting purposes. A couple of good ones in there. Thank you.
If I might, Warden, I guess I think it builds on my earlier comment, which is that the proponent will experience frustration at the zoning bylaw amendment stage because of factors that have been presented to the state.
Hey, have you guys captured all this? Type it away here on each side of it. Getting a little warmer, I will say that.
I made it through. I've got, sorry, through the warden, a possible motion then that council formally provides the following reasons for their decision to defeat official plan amendment number 225. Listed first is insufficient density, providing the proposal with no demonstrated ability to increase future density via as a right accessory dwelling option. Number 2 listed would be limited fire access and less than ideal firefighting practices. Is what I have so far. If there's any other, happy to add.
If I can, I'd like to insist that at least my opinion is represented on this one too, and that's about affordability and attainability of the housing stock that's proposed.
Maybe I'm so told I'm losing my hearing, but I didn't quite hear all what Todd said.
Affordability and attainability.
Okay.
Councillor McKenzie?
Well, my only concern, and it's maybe I shouldn't be concerned about it, but, and I agree with Jerry, those are legitimate concerns with regards to the fire department. If we're concerned about, emergencies and getting emergency vehicles, it is a definite concern, but it's not a county concern because we're dealing with official plan amendments. That is a zoning and site plan issue, which is dealt with by your CBO, not here.
Well, the site plan was ultimately approved by county council, but you're right, it's a CBO issue.
The site plan is approved by the local municipality, not by the county, correct? Yes. We have nothing to do.
We can do that.
We have nothing to do with the site plan. All we're doing is taking the land and taking it from, say, agricultural to residential. That's all we are doing. Site plan and everything else is dealt with at the lower tiers. Mr. Smith?
Thanks, Councilor McKenzie. Appreciate those comments. However, as Lori mentioned, or Seal, that we could put any comment we want to. If it does go to the board, they will make the decision whether or not it's legit or not. We could say anything, and they're going to decide, right? They're going to ultimately decide whether it's, I know it's nice to have our ducks in a row and T's crossed, but I'm of the opinion that we send whatever reason we deem fit, that we denied it.
Okay, so do you want to read that again, and then we'll see if that's what everybody's good with?
Absolutely. Through the warden, it would read as follows: that council formally provides the following reasons for their decision to defeat official plan amendment number 225 that was presented at the regular county council meeting on June 6, 2024. First reason listed is insufficient density provided in the proposal with no demonstrated ability to increase future density via as a right accessory dwelling options. Second, limited fire access and less than ideal firefighting practices. Third, affordability and attainability concerns. Just gonna leave it general.
Okay, is there anything anyone wants to add? If not, then we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McDermott. Any more comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and thanks, Andrea. We're going to move on. Now we're at the, where am I? County of Perth Official Plan Amendment number 222, and we have Jeff joining us. I don't know that one.
If you want to present from there, by all means.
Certainly. So I don't have any further presentation to add, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have on the application through the warden.
Okay, is there any more questions on the report? If not, we have a motion that council receives the County of Perth Official Plan Amendment number 222-279-4848 Ontario Inc. report, and that council approves the official plan amendment number 222 to the County of Perth official plan submitted by Baker Planning Group on behalf of 279-4848 Ontario Limited, affecting lands legally described as Part Lot 20, Regular Plan 398123 Station Road, Downey Ward in the Township of Perth South. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Trinkowski, second by Councillor Orr. Comments or questions? Councillor Trinkowski.
So we're considering the principle, the planning principle of making the amendment to the apartment buildings. The technical aspects, if I understand correctly, will be contemplated more closely at the plan of subdivision stage, correct?
Through the warden. So yes, today you're making a decision on the official plan amendment and the density involved in apartment dwellings and all of the technical details relating to the plan of subdivision, the Class A, all of that we'll be waiting to get the Class A recommendation back before we bring back a report on the zone change and that plan of subdivision.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDermott.
No, it's a interesting project, but I still would like to have a lot more information before I'm changing designations, especially about the sewage, because there is a source water protection nearby, and I'd rather have the EAs and that information done before I vote for it.
Anyone else? Councillor Orr?
I just want to clarify that the density is already there. We're not changing that. It's the difference between 7 apartment buildings going down to less apartment buildings. So I would vote for it because if they are longer apartment buildings, not higher, then there's more, less impact on the ground, more parking, and potentially elevators in the buildings. So this was just, we're not changing the density. It's already there, been there for how many years? So that is what I believe this amendment is simply about.
Okay, Councillor Duncan. Give yourself a second to make it, try it out.
Okay, can you hear me?
No, just give it a second.
Should be good on the secretary.
Okay, try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Through your warden. Now that Councillor Orr has made that comment, I guess I have a question to Jeff about that. Potentially, can that amount of density be built on that property without changing the number of units allowed in each apartment building?
Through the warden. So you're allowed to have apartment dwellings in the village designation up to 8 units for each of those buildings. I haven't looked at it. I haven't done a design or haven't seen a design to show how many units can fit on those same blocks of land if they reduce those apartment dwellings down to 8 units per building. I'm going to guess that it's probably less than what's being proposed, but I don't know for sure. I don't know if they can fit those buildings on there, if they design that subdivision differently. I haven't gone through that exercise.
Okay,
So ultimately what we're asking then is an increase in density on this property.
Through the warden, you're allowing for a different form of apartment dwellings on the property. And I can't clarify, or I can't confirm that you're increasing the density as a result of that, but you're allowing up to 3 stories in height with a unit per hectare of approximately 54 units per hectare for those apartments.
okay. All right, any other questions, Councillor Orr?
Just want to reiterate that this is only one step. There is still a lot of steps to go with the EA and all of that. But this is only about this decision. So all the other stuff, and I have concerns with traffic and the well and the water sewage treatment plant, but that is not what we're here to discuss today. It's just about the size of the apartments. I'm just wanting to clarify that.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Aitchison?
And one thing with this OPA, that would reflect on the whole county, not just this particular property. Right, because this is an OPA for the county. So Mark Perth or West Perth wanted to put up a bigger sized unit, then they could. Am I not correct in saying that?
Sure. If I might.
Well, that,
Through the warden, so this official plan amendment is only for the 2 blocks within this plan of subdivision. So you're changing it just for this property for those 2 blocks, it's not a policy change that you're making for the official plan to be applied in other areas. As other developers come in, they might look at these policies, but this is just for the subject lands here out on Station Road.
okay, Councillor Kassenberg?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Bannon, for that. I think that there is a big precedent that would be set here. Now, maybe that precedent sort of folds out in the wash when we've approved the new official plan and had the ministry approve it as well. But at this point in time, I do find myself, like Councillor McDermott, concerned about not having the full range of information at our disposal. It's difficult to sort of say, okay, well, we're going to essentially allow you to change the form there that it seems like it will increase the density of what was originally intended, and not understand servicing in that area. It just with sort of kind words that we're figuring it out and we're in the midst of an assessment. So I do have concerns that I think the residents have expressed quite well. I also, of course, bring to the table, I know I sound like a drummer beating the same drum all the time, but I saw very little that convinced me with regards to affordability on those blocks. And I know all of the arguments. I know what Councillor Aitchison is going to say with regards to, is anything affordable today? But I'm standing firm in my commitment that there are ways, at least to be explored for affordability. And I'd rather this be stopped at the earliest stage than the next stage where we get into those nitty-gritty details and the developers spent that much more money trying to figure out how to get there. So for me, I'm not comfortable with this resolution.
Anyone else? Councillor McKenzie?
This is probably a question that Jeff maybe can't answer, but do we have any idea or any indication when EA will be done?
I've heard, but I've only heard this, I haven't been told this. It might be done in the next month or 2. Mike, is that correct, Jeff? You heard that kind of?
Through the warden, that's my understanding. They were targeting to have it done late summer, early fall is what I've heard. Whether or not it's completed on that time frame, I don't know. I haven't spoke with them about timing recently to see if there's been any update. That was the last time I heard last dates.
Okay, anyone else? Well, Walter's thinking.
Well, no, I guess, well, like, I'm like Hugh and Todd here. So my concern is, so what happens 1 month from now, 2 months from now, when we get the EA? And there's some issues with how this is going to be serviced.
I would think the EA will stop it. If the EA says no, then that will stop the process. Because I believe that's what happened the last time, was when the EA came back, it wasn't what it should have been, and that stopped the process.
So even though we would do an OPA to allow it, that stays with that site forever.
That stays with the property forever, yes.
But
yes,
EA would stop it, that it couldn't happen.
If they said no, then that would stop everything that's going to happen there. It's my understanding. Councilor Trinkowski?
Through you, Warden, and further to Councilor McKenzie's line of questioning, then if the EA were to be a negative response denying the request, at future time, should a resubmission take place with revised design and technical information, the EA, another EA decision could accept it, subject to revised submissions, correct? So I guess that's a question to the planner.
Through your Warden. So if the EA decided that the servicing options weren't suitable for this development, the development wouldn't proceed. They would need to determine what that next step is to determine how to deal with servicing to that subdivision at that point in time. So they would have to reapply or revise the EA in order to find a solution that is going to be acceptable.
Right. So, no, that's fine, thank you.
Sir Katzenberg?
Could I ask a procedural question at this point then? Is it within the reasonable bounds of council's authority to defer a decision on this OPA until we've seen the environmental assessment? Is that a legitimate request against planning timelines? You know, the issue of planning timelines and the applications.
Timelines would be the one thing we'd have to inquire about. I think the only reason you couldn't maybe would be your planning timelines.
Yeah.
That's up to your planning department to answer.
Well, let's let Lori do that first, and then we'll talk about planning timelines. So Lori, you go first.
Thank you. So procedurally, deferral, referral are always in order, and then staff would have to give rationale on what would be a barrier to those. What would be a consequence to a deferral or a referral back to staff?
Okay, Jeff?
Through the Warden. So there are timelines in place for how long you would have to deal with an official plan amendment or a zoning bylaw amendment or a plan of subdivision. We are currently waiting on information from the Class EA in order to proceed with the plan of subdivision and the zone change. So we're already outside of the timeframes for processing these applications, so deferring it pushes you back farther. But at the same time, the applicant's well aware of the fact that they're going through the Class EA. They need to get that information back to us in order for us to make decisions on the plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw. And if you feel that it's necessary to defer this matter to not hear the official plan amendment, I think you're going to be following a similar timeframe as what we would be with the plan of subdivision and the rezoning application. So we're already late in processing times, but the one that could appeal a non-decision would be the applicant, and the applicant's the one that is proceeding through that Class EA. So they're not as likely to appeal a lack of decision based on the fact that they're the ones proceeding with the Class EA, and we're waiting on that to be completed in order to make proper decisions on those other two planning applications.
For a moment, I see the Warden's face. For a moment, I'm not sure I'm glad I asked that question.
Well, what I'm getting is that it can be deferred until we hear the EA decision. That's what I got out of that.
I'd like to move an amendment to the original resolution then that I believe, is it on the floor now, Tyler, or not?
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. I'd like to move consideration of an amendment that we defer until receipt of the class environmental assessment.
Yeah.
Say that out loud to everybody. My brain is a little.
Sorry. So through the warden, so procedurally, I believe we have a mover and a seconder already for the original.
Yes.
So a deferral or a referral, we would handle that as or an amendment, we'd handle it as a separate resolution, because if that's not how you want to proceed, you want to make an amendment, that'd be deferred. That is council's prerogative. Just my background would say it's a separate one that you want to defer it. Because if the deferral fails, then you still have your original resolution on the floor.
So you want to put the original motion, you want to table it? What do we do with it?
You're not tabling it, you're just dealing with a referral or a deferral, which is always in order. And then if neither of those, if you're deferring it, if it doesn't pass, then your original is still on the floor.
Yeah. I always was taught that you do the amendment to the motion, vote on amendment, and then you vote on the whole thing with it. But however you think it's clearer, that's the route we'll go.
So through the warden, an amendment is where you generally change the language or the intent of the actual resolution itself. In this case, we're not doing that.
Okay.
We're just simply saying we want to defer until further information or until the EA is here. You want to defer the matter.
If I might though, in terms of the language, is deferral not an approvable action in a resolution? I mean, certainly at the council table, I've encountered us change a word from approve to defer till, the excuse that you're deferring to, as a language change to the original resolution.
So through the warden, councils deal with things differently. So if that's how council wants to deal with it, it's certainly fine, but our recommendation is to do the other.
I'm not happy, I guess.
Do you want to proceed with your amendment that we defer?
If it's felt procedurally at this table that it's better to consider a separate motion for deferral, but right now on the floor is a current motion to approve. So we would have to, in theory, defeat that motion.
So, sorry.
I'm confused what we do with this motion. I want to know what we do with this motion. If we're going to make it another motion to amendment, where does this motion go? To me, it's sitting in limbo. That's why I want to add, or I think the amendment should be added to the original, but.
Okay, so through the warden, procedurally, how we would recommend is that you have a motion that's already on the floor. And it is an action, what you have there, it is there. And then you've got a motion to defer, which is always in order. And then you can vote, you would say, I move that the motion be deferred, it'd have to be first and seconded, you'd vote on it. If that fails, you still have your motion on the floor and you'd vote on that, or you could do an amendment to that, but you could still vote on it, nothing changes with that. If the deferral is good, then the matter would be deferred to when you determine it comes back, and then it's on the floor. It would come back, it wouldn't be in the, it's already moved and seconded, it's a good motion. And then at that time, you could do whatever you want with it.
Okay. So I think we should, if I might, Warden Eggetts, proceed as staff has directed, as suggested here, and consider a motion to defer this, take it off the table for the purpose of this council receiving the environmental assessment.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Castleberg is moving that. Do we have a seconder for deferral? Councillor McKenzie? Any more comments or questions? So now we're going to, Councillor Tunkowski.
So through you, Warden, so just a question to the planning department then. If we defer this, then the proponent is not likely to, if we defer this and knowing that we are past the due date for handling this application, the proponent is not likely to appeal a late decision.
Through the warden, so I can't tell you whether or not the applicant will appeal any given application. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of background information, saying that basically we're outside of the regulated timeframes for each of the applications already. We are moving ahead with those applications, and the applicant knows that we're moving ahead with that. We're trying to move ahead with the applications, waiting on information from the applicant. So being that the applicant is aware of the fact that the Class A needs to be done in order to complete the plan of subdivision and the rezoning application, I would not expect that we're going to be receiving an appeal from them on these matters at this point in time, but I can't tell you that it will not happen.
I guess I didn't phrase the question correctly. They have, right now as it stands, they have the right to appeal should they wish to do so. But you've already explained that there are other, the EA process is not completed yet either. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions of the motion to defer? All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so it's going to be deferred. Okay, thanks, everyone. Now we will move to corporate services, 2024 update, and Annette's going to do that.
All right.
Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Good afternoon. The report before you outlines the activities that took place within the corporate services division for the month of May. Very briefly, before I begin, I just want to say a word of congratulations to one of our staff members, our archives technician, Jennifer Giorgio. She was elected Vice President of the Archives Association of Ontario Municipal Archives Interest Group. So congratulations to Ms. Giorgio. And speaking of archives, the Archives Reading Room will be open for drop-in service on Saturdays over the summer. Archives had 2 students begin working in May who will assist with those summer hours, who will do various research, reference, and cataloging projects. POA is moving through its backlog and the volume of cases with additional blitz dates. You'll recall that those are not regularly scheduled dates, and they have secured additional dates for September, October, and December. Our GIS division has been working with the member municipalities, your fire departments, to create an interactive community risk assessment. That community risk assessment is the process of identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and prioritizing risks to public safety, which are used to inform the provision of fire protection services. The assessment is mandatory and must be completed every 5 years. Finance is continuing to work on the asset management plan to include levels of services. And by way of professional development, Legislative Services ran a training session for the management team on 3 key areas of information management fundamentals, being AMFIPA requests, freedom of information, the processes, as well as privacy. And that training focused on managers' responsibilities for the care, control, and disposition of information. So subject to any questions, that is my report.
Okay, thanks, Annette. Any questions of the report? None. We have a motion that council receives the corporate services May 2024 update report for information. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Aitchison. All in favor? Annette, our next one is under Public Works, and it's for the supply and delivery of speed radar display signs. And we have Bill with us this morning, so welcome, Bill. Excuse me, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ward Negetz. Good afternoon, Council. Through you, Ward Negetz, this report from Public Works is in regards to the results of the request for proposal that was issued for the supply of 44 speed radar to speed display signs that will be used to facilitate the permanent installation of the devices at 22 locations throughout the county's road network. As council will recall, staff were directed to undertake this installation and procure the devices in order to have them placed at the locations that were predetermined over the course of the last few council meetings. So an RFP specifying the requirements of the signs was issued through the online bidding system. We had a total of 6 proposal submissions. They were evaluated by staff. And through the evaluation process, the proposal received from Cedar Signs was ranked highest based on the evaluation criteria, which included sign design, performance, installation, recording and reporting functionality, warranty, technical support, references, and unit cost. A table summarizing the results is provided in the report. The submission received from Cedar Signs was ranked with a score of 96, and the unit cost proposed there was $3,779.95 per sign. The sign that they're proposing is the Traffic Logic Safe Pace 15, which is the same sign that we're using now, the ones that we're using to rotate. It's a solar powered device with a 15-inch screen. So in order to place 2 signs at each of the 22 locations, we will be looking at procuring 44 of them for a total value for the sign assets of $317.80. That excludes HST. There will be some additional expenses with the installation if we move forward with this for the wood posts, some hardware, staff, equipment and labor time. But we are projecting that to be less than $200,000, which is less than the previous reported estimate of about $300,000. So we have begun the process of laying out the sign locations and went ahead and we started to process some locate requests. Right now, staff are recommended that we award this proposal to Cedar Signs, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the report.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Questions of the report? Councillor Kantowski.
Through you, Warden, thanks for the report, Bill. What kind of warranty situation do we have with that equipment? Is it a standard industry warranty as in the past, or any little nuances there that we need to be aware of? Or
Through you, Warden Egg, it's a standard 2-year warranty that's provided for these signs.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have a motion that council receives the request for proposal 2024-031-06, supply and delivery of speed radar display signs report, that council award request for proposal 2024-031-06 to Cedar Signs, Inc., and that council direct staff to execute an agreement with Cedar Signs, Inc. for the supply of speed radar display signs. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any council reports? Oh, we have bylaw, that bylaw 3987-2024 be read a first, second, third time, and finally pass this 20th day of June, 2024. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Trankowski, second by Councillor Aitchison. All in favor? Carried.
Isn't that the one that we deferred?
Oh. It was good to go, right, Tyler? No?
222.
She didn't say 2.
That is that one.
So we shouldn't have passed that one.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Okay, we're not doing that one. We were in a seconder, okay with that?
I thought I was at the county.
All right, you got it.
When you said that,
Just ahead of it.
Okay. Can that one? The mover and the secondary to withdraw?
maybe if you could, Warden, restate the motion, please.
Restate the motion?
No, don't repeat what
Just repeat the motion you just read.
Just read it out in full again, please.
That bylaw 3987-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 20th day of June, 2024.
2024 is OPA
3987.
No.
We need
It's just the date there. This one needs to be pulled.
That one's the one we're gonna pull, 3987?
Yes.
We're going to pull it.
It was deferred.
That was deferred. That has to do with the OPA 222. Okay, so any notice of motions?
The other two bylaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. First, we gotta do other business announcement,
So we're still in the bylaw section?
but I only got one there.
Yes, but the two were added at the beginning, which is this one and this one. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so we have bylaw 3989-2024 be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 20th day of June 2024, and that's one we added at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor McKenzie, all in favor, carried. And then that had to do with here in Perth, Public Health Unit, and now this one is the Spruce Lodge long-term care cost. And that bylaw 3990-2024, we read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 20th day of June 2024. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Aitchison. All in favor? Carried. Okay, sorry, now notice of motions. Other business. Announcements. We have no closed session. So then we're down to our confirmatory bylaw. And it's bylaw 3988-2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Corporation of the County of Perth at its regular meeting held June 20th, 2024, is read a first, second, third time, and finally passed this 20th day of June, 2024. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Duncan. All in favor? Carried. And if there's nothing else, the last motion of the day is that council meeting to be adjourned at 1:03 PM. Moved by Councillor, everybody wants it, McKenzie, and second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. Great. Thanks, everyone. Long morning, but thank you for all your patience and have a great day. Bye.